Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. American Comics. Start by binding the Super Seminary clock. Chapter 61. There are currently no suitable options that can be used as fusion options, but there is nothing you want. Replied the big clock. Nothing I want. Is there still no way to analyze the chaos magic and God group factors? Li Qingyan said doubtfully. Chaos magic is too special, and it is still in the pre-explosion stage. The analyzed data needs to be deduced and simulated before it can be finally applied, so there has not been much progress. As for the God group on Earth is in the gestation period. It is actually a spiritual body and has not formed an effective life, so it cannot be extracted. It is recommended that if possible, it is best to directly find the already formed celestial God group, even if it is the corpse of the celestial God group as a specimen, perhaps the results can be analyzed faster. The big clock explained the situation in great detail. One is in an inactive state, and the other is not formed at all. Although they can master certain information, these information are not enough to be used to integrate with Li Qingyan himself. The corpse of the celestial God group. There really is such a thing in the universe. One of the corpses of the celestials has clearly appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is a place of nothingness. The head of a former God group left behind after death. Now the head is controlled by collectors, turning it into a huge black market trading place. At the same time, collectors are still continuously digging for the treasures remaining in the heads of the Tianjin group. The head itself is a treasure. Want to go to the universe? Li Qingyan was thinking. It wouldn't do him any harm to take a walk around the universe. But the question is, if he leaves, what will the manor do? There is nothing in Li Qingyan's manor now. He has gradually built a huge factory here. Many of the equipment in the dark matter plane structure were initially built in this underground factory. The technology contained here can be said to be beyond that of everyone on Earth at this stage. Once Li Qingyan leaves, these technologies will inevitably attract covetous attention from all over the world. Especially those who have known for a long time that Li Qingyan possesses super high technology. Although Banner and the others will continue to stay here, the underground laboratory and the manor itself need to have certain defense methods. Li Qingyan no longer has nothing. Now that you have a home, you need an assistant who can look after your home. Does your database contain information about certain soldiers in the Teodi Legion? Li Qingyan couldn't directly summon his favorite super warriors through the big clock. Because the super genetic code is not known, there is no data information about the super soldier. But since the big clock assisted Karl, the god of death, in promoting the development of the Teodi civilization, it should have recorded a lot of information in the Teodi civilization. Especially those who have been completely transformed into mechas, the so-called warriors blessed by death. Their bodies were completely freed from their physical bodies and loaded into transformed steel bodies. Then during the entire loading process, the big clock should record the entire loading process, including the loading record information. There is indeed specific information about the Teodi mecha in the database. By replicating the data, the same Teodi mecha can be created. But the problem is, they are all loyal believers of Karl, the god of death. If you want to reproduce it, the data itself must be reshaped and redefined. The big clock displays answers and then gives reminders. These recreated warriors should be given a new god and faith. The big clock said, and its last words made Li Qingyan fall into deep thought. God and faith. This is the stage that Li Qingyan will eventually reach after becoming a super soldier from an ordinary person. But in the past, Li Qingyan never thought about what kind of god he would become. What will his belief concept be like? For this question, you can actually sort out a rough framework directly through your memory data. Said the big clock. Through my memory data, Li Qingyan said doubtfully. Yes, your past living habits and the senses naturally formed in your mind are the framework that is most suitable for you. The upper and lower limits of this framework are the upper and lower limits of your followers. As for your final beliefs and ideals, this still needs to be decided by you. What the big clock said made Li Qingyan nod silently. The habits I have developed in the past are indeed the civilized standards that are most suitable for me. As for the upper and lower limits, Li Qingyan can still slowly adjust them based on his own growth in the future. However, this ultimate pursuit of faith and ideals still requires him to think carefully. What do I most want to achieve? Li Qingyan is examining himself and questioning himself. He wanted to figure out what he wanted to pursue most. Is it supreme power? Is it the strongest force? Or eternal life? These are what Li Qingyan wants. But it seems that this is not what he wants to achieve most. For the time being, let's settle on one based on supreme power, the strongest strength, and eternal lifespan. Li Qingyan did not continue to struggle with this. It is not possible to figure out what one's true ideals and pursuits are by just thinking about it. It takes years of baptism and life's trials to slowly understand. I understand. I will define your identity in the name of the Lord of Shenhe. The Teoti warrior created will be the most loyal warrior under your command. Its name is Shenhe Mecha. The big clock answered. Then, it began to operate the underground factory and began to create these mechas. With the exploration of the universe by the big clock and the collection of powerful substances in the universe, Li Qingyan now has a lot of resources in his hands. Li Qingyan has solid space metals, even dark iron elements and void substances. The outer space metal he got from Counselor Yan before has already been fused with a certain amount of dark iron elements to create real dark alloy armor. And now, the Shenhe mecha they want to make naturally cannot be made of ordinary metals. Incorporating a certain amount of dark iron elements can enhance the combat effectiveness of these mechas. Li Qingyan even had the big clock equip them with flame-class blades. Under the control of the big clock, with the manufacturing capacity of the underground factory today, 8 Shenhe mechas were manufactured in one go, and they will become the guardians of Li Qingyan's manor and the Dark Elf mothership. They will also be Li Qingyan's real subordinates. Eating beasts, stags, wind and thunder. There were a total of 8 Kamigawa mechas created, and Li Qingyan recognized the 3 in front of him. Among them was the Teoti King, and 2 of them had led the Teoti Legion's vanguard to invade the earth. Meet the Lord of Kamigawa. Shizuo knelt down first, followed by the 7 Kamigawa mechas who knelt down together. This is their respect for God. Li Qingyan nodded with satisfaction. Of these 8, the weakest are at the level of the first and second generation super warriors. Although they really fight, they may not be able to defeat the second generation super soldiers with rich combat experience. But there is no doubt that in this Marvel world, he is a very suitable candidate to guard his home. Are you clear about the orders I gave you? Li Qingyan looked at Xie Zhu. This guy is quite crazy in the movie, always thinking that everyone else only deserves to smell the farts of his god Carl, but in the end he was co-ed by Zhe Shaolun with a big sword. Guard the manor and the mothership. Don't tell anyone that you only deserve to smell the farts of my god Li Qingyan. Shi Shu answered seriously. However, when I said this, it felt a little weird no matter how I looked at it. I only deserve to smell the farts of my god Li Qingyan. Not to mention some pranks. There is no such thing as, only worthy of smelling my god Carl. But the purpose of Li Qingyan's doing this is just to not let this sentence spread in the Marvel Cinematic Universe because of these gluttons. Well, just remember it. Li Qingyan did not dwell too much on this issue. Because the more entangled it is, the more entangled it becomes. What's going on with these mechas? Zhao Hailun came to Li Qingyan, and she looked at these Kamigawa mechas curiously. I'm going to leave the earth for a while and let them look after my house. Li Qingyan didn't hide it, because hiding it didn't make much sense. There are a few of them like Xie Zhu, so it's useless for ordinary people to come. If Yan Zhu and the others can't deal with them, then even if Li Qingyan doesn't say he's leaving, the other party will still have a way to confirm whether he is still there. They look different from the previous robots. Zhao Hailun looked at Xie Zhu and the others, then turned to look at a robot that was cleaning in the distance. Although they look like robots, they are actually real beings. The Kamigawa mechas of the Devourers are naturally different from ordinary robots. Real life. Is it possible to upload a person's brain into the mecha through information upload? After all, he is a physics scientist. Although Zhao Hailun does not study mechas and artificial intelligence, he can still understand some knowledge in this area. Yes, Li Qingyan nodded. How on earth is it possible to completely upload a person's brain into a machine? Helen Zhao looked at the mechas in front of her in surprise. He even walked over and observed it up close. Go away, human woman. Eater is not the kind of robot that people can look at and observe wantonly. Well, Helen Zhao was startled and took a few steps back quickly. Why are you talking, eater? Li Qingyan's expression condensed. Although he knew that this was the nature of the beast eaters, now that they were his subordinates, how could they be so rude to their friends? I'm sorry, God. Shi Shu quickly lowered his head. He will be vicious to everyone else, but only when facing Li Qingyan, he will be extremely respectful. Because after he was resurrected by the big clock, the original god in his mind, the god of death, Karl, had been replaced by Li Qingyan. The people of their gluttonous army will be extremely loyal to their gods. You can treat other people as you please, but you must exercise restraint when it comes to my friends. Li Qingyan will not forcefully change the character of Shiro. Because once it changes, he will no longer be Yenshi. But he had to let the beast understand how to distinguish between ourselves and the enemy. At the very least, he must be restrained when facing his friends. He must restrain his dislike of human beings as much as possible in front of these people. As God, Shizuo agreed respectfully. The other 7 Kamigawa mechas behind him also lowered their heads at this time. This means that they also took note of it. Who were they when they were alive? Why are you so hostile to me? Helen Zhao retreated to Li Qingyan and asked doubtfully. They are animals, not humans. Beast body. Helen Zhao was even more confused. She had never heard of such a group. The beast body is an intelligent group evolved from the beast form. They have fought many physical wars with us humans, but they failed in the end. But because of the different races, I still have a lot of hostility towards humans, at least towards most humans. The reason why they are not hostile to all humans is because some humans have become their rulers, their beliefs and gods. In the Super God universe, this person was Karl, the god of death. And in this Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's Li Qingyan. Since there is hostility, they won't go on a killing spree if you leave, right? Helen Zhao began to worry. No matter how you look at these Kamigawa mechas, they look like they have very strong combat capabilities. If Li Qingyan left the Earth, they would have no one to care about them, and since they already have hatred and disgust for humans, why wouldn't they go on a killing spree and take revenge on humans? As long as they don't come to invade and destroy my manor and the Dark Elf Mothership, they will not take the initiative to attack anyone. Li Qingyan gave orders to Shizuo and the others. Their mission is to protect Li Qingyan's home, the underground manufacturing factory and the Dark Elf Mothership. As long as they don't actively invade these places, they won't take action. But if someone really wants to invade, guys like Shizu and others who came from the Teodi Legion and regarded life as trivial would never show any mercy. Does it mean that if we enter your underground factory, we will also be attacked by them? Helen Zhao had to figure this out in advance. Will you go in? Li Qingyan did not answer, but asked the question instead. I'm not going in anyway. Helen Zhao quickly denied it. Not to mention that her original research direction was different from Li Qingyan, entering that underground factory would not be of much benefit to her at all. There are just these Kamigawa mechas in front of us. With them guarding the entrance to the underground factory, who would dare to break in? If you don't go in, then nothing will happen, Li Qingyan said. And the meaning of his words was also obvious. As long as Helen Zhao, Banner and the others don't enter the underground factory, nothing will happen. But if they want to go in, they won't let them go if they don't tell me in advance. The basement is Li Qingyan's secret place. The people living in this manor didn't know this until today. Trespassing is an offense. Among the 8 Kamigawa mechas, King Kai is arranged in the manor. He will be the leader of the other 7 Kamigawa mechas. 2 of these 7 Kamigawa mechas entered the Dark Elf Mothership and were responsible for staying there and studying some technologies in the Dark Elf Mothership. 2 permanently guarded entrances to underground factories. The remaining 3, following the arrangements of King Kai, either rotated with others, or were on standby at any time, waiting for new instructions from Li Qingyan from the universe. After taking care of the Shogia affairs, Li Qingyan should prepare to go to the universe. Have you really decided to go out into the universe by yourself? Banner looked at Li Qingyan, who had completed preparations and was about to leave for the universe. Although the 2 of them had already been to Asgard before. But that was Sol's hometown, and it was a familiar place they went to. But this time, Li Qingyan really planned to explore the universe. God's vision should not be limited to this small planet in the first place. Li Qingyan said with a smile. I don't have many friends here. You are the one I have known for the longest time. If anything happens at home, you have to look out for me. Li Qingyan said this, but Banner subconsciously glanced at the eater and the other Kamigawa mechas. He and Li Qingyan were indeed friends, and he also believed that what Li Qingyan said was true. But with these Kamigawa mechas here, why do they need his help to take care of them? I've been here for 2 or 3 years, and it's almost time to go back and see my relatives at home. Banner didn't plan to stay here forever. This is a good research base. The technology mastered by Li Qingyan is also of great help to Banner. This time Li Qingyan was going out, and he also wanted to take the opportunity to go back. It sure feels good to go back to a state where you have complete control over your own power. Fine, Li Qingyan saw Banner's thoughts. Then, Dr. Selvig, Dr. Zhao Hailun, as well as Dr. Wang Haiming, and Dr. Chen Li, I can only rely on you here. Li Qingyan turned to look at the other 4 people. We will do our job well. Zhao Haiming replied. The other 3 people also nodded. But each of them understands that the main purpose of their stay is to study their own technology. When it comes to taking care of others, it's more about taking care of people outside. Let them not use their brains at this time and come to the manor to die in vain. Gone. Li Qingyan didn't say anything else. Open the space wormhole and walk right in. He is going to the universe, but he doesn't know much about the universe here. The exploration of the big clock is mainly to collect void matter, dark iron elements, etc. In addition, the time is short, and there is no way to explore the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. Therefore, if Li Qingyan wants to go to the universe, to the land of nothingness, he needs a pair of eyes to know the interstellar coordinates of some major planets after he goes to the universe. Therefore, the first place Li Qingyan went to was Asgard. On the Asgard Rainbow Bridge, the Asgardian Guardian, who was looking out at the entire universe, stood there upright, looking at the wall in front of him. Although he was in the middle of a circular device, it seemed to be surrounded by walls. But his eyes were observing the distant stars in the universe. Li Qingyan's arrival did not surprise Heimdall. Because he had already seen Li Qingyan's move to go to the universe, and also guessed that he would come to his side first. Aren't you bored just staring at the universe all by yourself? Li Qingyan walked to Heimdall's side, followed his example, and looked at the wall in front of him. When you stare at the starry sky for a long time, you will gradually find that such observation itself is a kind of fun. Heimdall answered, but did not turn around to look at Li Qingyan. It seems quite tall and distinguished. Li Qingyan said. Since you like observing so much, would you like to help me? What's the deal? Help me record the entire universe. Li Qingyan answered lightly, but his words made Heimdall stunned. Recording the universe. Heimdall looked at Li Qingyan in surprise. He couldn't believe that this was what Li Qingyan asked him to help with. Yes, now it has changed. Li Qingyan is looking ahead with a calm expression. The universe is so huge, how could anyone in this world be able to record it completely? Heimdall has been observing the universe for thousands of years, but until now, all he can see and remember is only a small area. How could there be anyone in this world who could record the entire universe? Just because you can't do it, doesn't mean I can't do it. Li Qingyan said. Don't you want to connect all the starry skies you have seen to form a complete starry sky map? This. Heimdall hesitated. Of course he had thought about drawing a complete picture of the starry sky through the universe he observed. But this kind of thing is simply impossible to do. Even Odin, Asgard's father of the gods, couldn't do it. In fact, the universe is too vast. Even among humans, or even all the gods he knows, no one can explore the entire starry sky. Not to mention, the entire starry sky has to be recorded and then gathered into a map. If I can do it, would you be willing to help me? Li Qingyan is not just talking here. His plug-in, the greatest celestial computer in the super god universe that he has been bound to since he crossed over, has the ability to calculate the world tree model of the entire universe. Although, in the end, the big clock was stopped by the so-called void. The scope that can be explored can only be identified as the known universe, and it is impossible to set foot in the void outside the known universe. But there is no doubt that the big clock has the powerful ability to record and calculate the entire universe. Li Qingyan may spend tens of thousands of years in the future, relying on the calculation of the big clock to travel around the Marvel movie universe. But before that, if he can directly obtain the information he has seen and understood for thousands of years through Heimdall, he can draw a star map. Finally, with the help of Heimdall's ability to observe the entire universe, he continued to observe more, farther, and larger areas of the universe, and perhaps he could understand the cosmic structure of the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe more quickly. And now there is only one key question. That is, as the guardian of Asgard, Heimdall, is he willing to help himself? It seems that you are all jumping orders. Is it still a bit watery? Now, Li Qingyan is waiting for Heimdall's reply. Drawing a starry sky map of the universe must be very attractive to a person who has been observing the universe for a long time and enjoys it. But Heimdall's identity is quite special. He is the guardian of Asgard. As a result, the decision he had to make became even more difficult to make. What method did you use to draw this map of the universe and the starry sky? Heimdall looked at Li Qingyan. He was actually tempted, but he still had to ask clearly what Li Qingyan was thinking. I can implant a program in your brain, and the information you see will be automatically transmitted to me in the future, and then I will use the information I perceive you see to draw the starry sky map of the universe. You want to implant a program into my brain? Heimdall's face darkened. If you want to simultaneously obtain what you see with your eyes and the data recorded in your brain, you can only obtain it in this way. Li Qingyan also knew that this method was actually somewhat difficult to implement. As the guardian of Asgard, Heimdall has too much important information in his mind that needs to be kept secret. Moreover, even ordinary people, no one is willing to show their brains to others. I can't agree to this condition. Heimdall refused and implanted a program into his brain, which he could not agree to. If you don't do that, you'll have to start from scratch. Li Qingyan had long known that it would be difficult for Heimdall to agree to his suggestion. So, he also had a backup plan. How to start from scratch. Heimdall's interest, which had just extinguished, was restored at this time. I can build a device and put it over your eye so that what you can see, I can see. Moreover, you can take off this device at any time, so that when you don't want to be observed by me, I won't be able to observe through your perspective. Li Qingyan said, this method works. This time, Heimdall could accept it. The biggest disadvantage of this method is that it cannot obtain the data recorded in your brain for thousands of years. The entire starry sky map needs to be drawn from scratch, bit by bit. Li Qingyan also knew that this method was the easiest for Heimdall to accept. But this is not the most rewarding plan for Li Qingyan. However, he won't be upset about it. Respect each other's privacy and the premise of cooperation is win-win. Li Qingyan understands these principles. Besides, this was just a hobby for Heimdall, but it was of great use to Li Qingyan. Starting from scratch would be fun, wouldn't it? Heimdall said that he was very satisfied with this plan. Right, Li Qingyan said. Wait for me a while. Li Qingyan said, and then he began to remotely control the underground factory in the earth based on the big clock, and began to produce this special device. With the technology possessed by the big clock, it is not difficult to manufacture such a device for obtaining visual field information with the help of underground factories. In just a few minutes, the device was completed. Afterwards, it passed through the wormhole and was directly transmitted from the earth by Li Qingyan. It was a transparent crystal, only the size of a finger cap, and after attaching it to the edge of the corner of the eye, it immediately integrated completely into Heimdall's skin. Only when Heimdall reached out to touch them did they reappear, and were then successfully removed by Heimdall. This is really good stuff. Even with Heimdall's extensive knowledge, he was a little shocked when faced with this device. What good thing is it? Thor is here. Li Qingyan suddenly arrived in Asgard and stayed at Heimdall's side for more than 10 minutes. If he, the Prince of Asgard, didn't know, it would be a big failure. Now that you know it, why don't you come and take a look? Just when he arrived, he heard Heimdall sighing. A synchronous transmission device can directly and simultaneously transmit the scene Heimdall saw to me. Li Qingyan explained. This is really good stuff. Heimdall showed a faint smile. He was genuine and pleased with the device. Why did you suddenly think of giving Heimdall this device? Thor was a little curious. As a friend of Li Qingyan, he had not yet received the synchronized communication device sent by Li Qingyan, so why did Heimdall get it first? As such that, Heimdall explained to Thor in detail. Thor was also shocked when he heard that Li Qingyan actually intended to use Heimdall's ability to understand the universe and draw a map of the cosmic starry sky. This is an infinitely vast universe, and it is a universe that is constantly in motion. How could someone possibly draw a star map of such a vast universe? However, since this was Li Qingyan's proposal, Heimdall was also very interested. The two of them were going to work together to draw this picture of the starry sky. No matter whether they succeeded or not, he had nothing to say. However, Thor is very interested in this synchronous communication device. Finally, under his strong request, Li Qingyan could only make one for Thor. However, the one he gave Thor was not specifically for eyes. It is similar to the wireless communication equipment on Earth, but it is more secretive, has more powerful communication functions, and is enough to cover almost the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe. At least for now, there is no area where the big clock cannot build a communication link. As long as there is dark energy, as long as there is no special communication shielding means, the communication of the big clock is unimpeded. Are you satisfied now? Li Qingyan said helplessly. Well, satisfied. Thor nodded with satisfaction. You didn't come here specifically to draw a cosmic star map with me this time, did you? Heimdall was familiar with Li Qingyan at this time. He spoke more casually. I want to go to the universe, but I don't have any star map coordinates in the universe, so I came to ask you for a few. Li Qingyan was going to the void, and would also go to Morag and Vormir later. Since he already knew where the two Infinity Stones were, how could he not look for them now that he was in the universe? The Power Stone of Morag was within his reach. Although there were special conditions for obtaining the Soul Stone of Vormir, it did not mean that Li Qingyan had no chance of obtaining it. For everything, you have to try before you know it. The synchronous communication device has been given to Heimdall. After that, the starry sky map of the universe can naturally be drawn by the information transmitted by the big clock. Now, he has also obtained the interstellar coordinates to the void, Morag and Vormir. Without stopping at all, Li Qingyan arrived directly at Morag Star. If you want to get it at the very beginning. Take it away before Star-Lord, Ronan, and Thanos arrive. The gate of the temple, the energy shield that stores the cosmic spirit ball, these facilities used to prevent others from taking away the power gems, are all useless in front of Li Qingyan. The power of super god technology surpasses the previous technology of this Morag planet by many. After getting the cosmic spirit ball, Li Qingyan didn't even open it to look at the power gem inside. The wormhole opened, and he went directly to the next location, which was located on a cliff on the planet Vormir. Soon after he left Morag, the planet welcomed new guests. It was a Star-Lord wearing old headphones and humming like crazy. After Star-Lord, there are people from Ronan's Legion. But no matter who it is, after coming to Morag Star, they will return empty-handed. Because the cosmic spirit ball had already been taken away by Li Qingyan. Welcome, Lord of Kamigawa. The red skull hidden under the black robe appeared in front of Li Qingyan. As the guide of the soul gem, Red Skull already possesses many strange abilities at this time. Knowing some things in the universe that ordinary people don't know can prevent you from being harmed by any force, even beyond life and death. It is Red Skull's misfortune to be controlled by the Soul Stone. But the power given by the Soul Stone also makes it much stronger than before. You know everything about me. Li Qingyan was a little curious. In the movie, when facing Thanos and Black Widow, they all seemed to know everything. Now, he saw that he was the Lord of Kamigawa as soon as he opened his mouth. Lord of the Divine River, this was the name Li Qingyan had just given before he left the Earth. It was to commemorate the Divine River civilization that created the big clock, so he gave it the title of God. No, I actually know nothing about you. Red Skull shook his head helplessly. As the guide of the Soul Gem, he can see through the souls of the people who come here and see all their information through the Soul Gem. But this time, he failed. He didn't understand the person who suddenly appeared in front of him at all. The only thing he could see was a title, the title of Lord of Kamigawa. But he had no idea what the Lord of the Kamigawa meant and who the Lord of the Kamigawa was. The moment you arrived, a strange force quietly invaded your soul, seeming to want to read certain information. The sound of the big clock sounded in Li Qingyan's mind. At that moment, When he felt the arrival of strange energy, Li Qingyan's self-defense program had already started. The large clock provided enough energy, so Li Qingyan did not read any information from this strange energy. The Soul Stone is indeed the most mysterious and peculiar one among the 6 Infinity Stones. Li Qingyan sighed in his heart. Of the 6 Infinity Stones, the one that displays the strongest power should be the Power Stone. The Power Stone can destroy a planet instantly. In terms of functionality, the Time Stone and Reality Stone are obviously better. The Time Stone allows people to travel into the past and future and master the powerful rule of time. The Reality Stone has the ability to rewrite reality. It can actually subvert some conventional rules and energy laws in the universe. During the time when the ether particles were attached to the Tianxia sword, this attribute of the ether particles had been further understood by Li Qingyan. However, no matter whether it is the Power Gem, the Time Gem, the Reality Gem or the other 2 Space Gems and the Mind Gem, they are not as powerful as the Soul Gem in front of you. It has been proven that both the Mind Stone and the ether particles have a certain spirituality. But in terms of spirituality, the Soul Gem is obviously more obvious and unique. It hid on the planet Vormir, and transferred the Red Skull here through the Cosmic Cube to become its guide. No matter who comes, if you want to get the Soul Gem, you need to dedicate the soul of the person you love most before you can get it. He paid no more attention to Red Skull. Li Qingyan walked directly to the edge of the cliff at this time, looking into the midair ahead. His eyes suddenly opened wide at this moment, and the aura on his body also suddenly increased at this moment. Li Qingyan activated the Eye of Insight and aroused the surrounding dark energy to conduct an all-round search of the space in front of him. He wanted to try to find the specific location of the Soul Gem and how it was hidden. But at this moment, no matter how much he searches, no matter how much dark energy he mobilizes, the result seems to be the same. There was absolutely nothing in front of him. The Soul Stone seems not to be in this place at all, not even on this planet. You are very powerful, but it is simply impossible to find the Soul Gem with brute force. Red Skull reminded that what he said at this moment was actually what the Soul Gem wanted to say. The Soul Stone itself cannot speak, but the connection between it and the Red Skull allows it to use the Red Skull to convey its meaning. It cannot be obtained by force alone. Li Qingyan stopped searching for the Soul Stone. He actually knew long ago that his trip would probably be in vain. After all, Thanos, who possessed the 3 Infinity Stones of power, space and reality, had no way to do anything when he came here, and could only push Gamora off the cliff. Although Li Qingyan now has 4 Infinity Stones and has the blessing of the Great Clock. But the increase and decrease of power still have the same effect. Perhaps another way is needed to find the Soul Stone. Li Qingyan thought in his heart. As long as it exists in space, it can definitely be found, unless it is not in the space we think it is. Li Qingyan took over the words of the Great Clock and expressed his guess. The Soul Stone, it is rarely introduced in the movie. But in the comics, it is a stone that is emphasized. In the description of the Soul Stone in the comics, there is such a setting. That is, there is a small universe hidden in the Soul Stone, which is different from the real universe and contains extremely powerful and special energy. Perhaps the current Soul Stone is hidden in this small universe. And what it leaves here is just a special mark. Only when it senses that someone has followed its instructions will it come out through this mark and appear directly in that person's hand. Li Qingyan's guess about the Soul Gem may be correct or incorrect. But whether it is correct or not, he has no way to find it now. Even if the Soul Gem is special, its energy comes from the beginning of the universe just like other Infinity Gems. Through a detailed analysis of the Infinity Gems, we should be able to find their commonalities. Big Clock, in the subsequent research on the Infinity Gems, focus on analyzing this point. As long as we can find the commonalities between the Infinity Gems, no matter how well the Soul Gem is hidden, we can always find it. Li Qingyan looked at the void in front of him, but he was saying this to the Big Clock in his mind. Understood. From now on, I will study different Infinity Gems at the same time, and then try to find the similarities between them. The Big Clock answered, and at the same time, a new task has been implemented in its computer system. Study the relationship between ether particles and void engines. Crack more and stronger supernatural factors. Explore whether there is a connection between multidimensional space and different dimensional space. Now there is another one, find the commonalities between the infinity gems. Li Qingyan had already been studying many advanced things without realizing it. Multidimensional space and extra-dimensional space, although here they mainly refer to the dark dimension, dark matter plane space, and multiverse. But in Li Qingyan's heart, he was actually still wondering whether the Marvel Cinematic Universe was related to some other universes. For example, the Super God Universe, and the universe before Li Qingyan traveled through time. He actually kept his rental house all the time. In order to protect the rental house, Li Qingyan even bought a whole piece of land nearby, and he would go back to stay for a while from time to time. Others traveled through time only after they died. Whether it was direct travel or soul travel, they came by themselves, and at most brought one or two things, and it was rare for the entire rental house to travel through time. And the house he was in was exactly the same as before the travel, except that the other people in it were different. So Li Qingyan thought that his travel might be different from the conventional travel. Even if there is only a slight possibility, you should try it, because maybe you can go from simple crossing to traveling back and forth between different worlds of reality and fantasy. Most importantly, studying multidimensional space and multiverse is also of great benefit to Li Qingyan's research on dark matter plane space. Because the dark matter plane space itself is also an independent dimensional space relative to this world. It is a strange space opened up between reality and fantasy by the big clock with the help of super god technology. If the setting of the soul gem is like the comics, and there is a small world hidden inside the gem, then it should also hide a dimensional space. Therefore, Li Qingyan is more interested in the soul gem now than before. The wormhole opened in front of him, but before Li Qingyan walked over, he still looked back at the space in front of the cliff. Although he couldn't see or find it, he knew that the soul gem was there. When he found the common point of energy between the infinite gems, he would definitely come back again. Take the soul gem from here without sacrificing his beloved. Walk through the wormhole and go to the next destination. After Li Qingyan left, Red Skull stood on the edge of the cliff and also looked at the void. He will be back, and it won't take long, Red Skull said, and in front of him, a burst of orange light suddenly flickered. That is the soul gem. It is at the location where Li Qingyan had observed before. However, Red Skull can see it but can't touch it. Red Skull is cursed. He can only be the guide of the soul gem and point the way for others who come here to find the soul gem. Only when someone successfully takes the soul gem away from here one day can he regain his freedom. Only then will he be qualified to look for other infinite gems and pursue his own dream of ruling the world. Li Qingyan, who left Vormir, went directly to the periphery of the void. He stood in the starry sky of the universe, looking at the huge sphere floating in the universe in front of him. This is the land of nothingness, occupied by the collector, and the head left behind by a certain god after his death. However, the facial features and outlines of this head have long been invisible. Under the corrosion of time, the collector and his workers have been digging for many years, and those facial features and outlines have long been destroyed. Can the supernatural factors be analyzed? Li Qingyan asked. He had already arrived here, and the big clock naturally took samples for analysis as soon as possible. Yes, but these genetic information has lost most of its energy because of the long time of death. I need some time to reverse the calculation, and it is best to stay in this land of nothingness. The big clock replied. Yes, Li Qingyan did not refuse. He had been prepared for a long time. This time out would not be smooth, and he had already thought that he might have to stay in the universe. Because of this, he recreated the mecha warriors of the Eater King and several other Teoti legions on the earth, and let them take care of the house on his behalf. The collector of the universe, a seemingly ordinary person, is actually an extremely mysterious being. He is the elder of the universe, and like Gao Tianzun of Sokka Star, he is a strange life form with a long lifespan. They know many secrets in this universe. As a collector, he is even more keen on collecting all kinds of strange and weird things in the universe. The Infinity Stones were one of the things he most wanted to collect. Li Qingyan did not reveal his identity. He quietly entered the land of nothingness and wandered around here as an ordinary visitor from the universe. The big clock is analyzing the detailed information of the celestial group factors. At the same time, Li Qingyan was also invading the collector's treasure house and investigating everything inside. He also wanted to see what particularly precious things the collector had collected. This result made him feel a little disappointed. Although the collector's name is very famous, the patriarch of the universe in the movie, like his brother Gao Tianzun, seems a bit inconspicuous. Gao Tianzun became the ruler of Sokka planet, but ended up ruling the planet into a mess. Later, Thor, the god of thunder, Hulk, and Loki, who accidentally wandered there, were shaken up and turned upside down, and finally fell to the altar. Someone came to the outside of the void through space jump. It was Star-Lord and others who drove the Milan spacecraft. They did not get the cosmic orb, but because Star-Lord was known to be the first person to enter the temple, everyone naturally thought that Star-Lord took the cosmic orb away. Gamora wanted to follow Star-Lord. Rocket Raccoon and Groot were accidentally involved. Drax the Destroyer also joined them to find Ronan. This temporary team came directly to the void. What are they doing here? Li Qingyan stood by the window and looked at the group of funny people. Star-Lord wanted to take the opportunity to get rid of others, and others thought that he had the cosmic orb. Li Qingyan activated the Eye of Insight and understood all the thoughts of these people at once. This is really a conspiracy. Li Qingyan sighed, and then took out the cosmic orb that was the most concerned by this group of funny people. The metal sphere outside the cosmic spirit ball automatically separated at this moment, revealing the purple power gem inside. Li Qingyan now has 4 infinite gems in his hands. Space, mind, reality and power. The reality gem has been attached to the Tianxia sword in the form of ether particles, and Li Qingyan has no intention of forcibly separating it. The 3 gems of space, mind and power will be used by Li Qingyan to charge the big clock. Among them, the energy output power of the power gem is the highest. When the 6 infinite gems are inlaid on the infinite gauntlet, the power gem has always stood in a cornerstone-like position. The first one that Thanos personally took action to snatch was the power gem. After mastering the power gem, Thanos's combat power was greatly improved, because the power gem's ability is to directly enhance combat power and destructive power. In addition, the power gem can also provide charging for other infinite gems, making the power generated by those gems more powerful. In Li Qingyan's view, the permission principle of the Infinity Gauntlet, that is, when the 6 Infinity Gems are combined into one, they can control the entire universe because of the mutual cooperation between these 6 abilities. When the owner snaps his fingers, he gives orders to the 6 Infinity Gems on the Infinity Gauntlet. The Mind Gem understands the user's true intentions and conveys this order to other Infinity Gems in the most accurate way. According to this order, the Reality Gem begins to create the effect the user wants. The Space Gem makes the effect of this creation, that is, the energy generated, begin to spread continuously to the universe. The Time Gem makes the generation of this energy unrestricted in time, that is, this effect, in conjunction with the Space Gem, can take effect in the entire universe at the same time. The Power Gem provides enough energy to allow all the Infinity Gems to spread faster and more accurately. As for the Soul Gem, in fact, Li Qingyan has not figured out the exact positioning of the Soul Gem among the 6 Infinity Gems. It may have the same function as the Mind Gem, reading the user's intentions and conveying them to other Infinity Gems. After all, it can drive the Space Stone according to its own will without a master or controller, and let the Space Stone transfer the Red Skull to Vormir. From this point of view, it is reasonable for the Soul Stone to have the ability to control other Infinity Stones. But the soul is ethereal and mysterious. In the data theory model, if there is a Mind Stone, there is no need for another Soul Stone. However, in actual operation, if there is no Soul Stone, the other 5 Infinity Stones cannot achieve the effect of snapping fingers. I can't figure it out. Li Qingyan sighed and didn't continue to think about it. If you can't figure out some things now, you should put them aside for the time being. If you keep thinking about them, sometimes you will only get stuck in a fixed mindset. Just like now, if he only focuses on the Infinity Stones, he will ignore a very important issue. That is Thanos' ability to control intelligence. How can he accurately know the whereabouts of those Infinity Stones? And how did he appear at the most appropriate time in the place where the Infinity Stones are most easily obtained? The other Infinity Stones are easy to explain. But the Space Stone is simply incomprehensible. Although many people know that the Space Stone is in Asgard. But Asgard is the place where the Aesir live, Odin and Hela are both very powerful, the kind of power that Thanos finds difficult to defeat. But Thanos was able to accurately stop Thor and his men after the death of Odin and Hela, when the Asgardians were on a huge spaceship heading to Earth. In addition, there is the Reality Stone in the Void, and the Mind Stone was in Vision at the time. Vision hid his whereabouts in order to be with Scarlet Witch. The ether particles are hidden in the Void, and only a few core members of Asgard know about it. After the Collector gets it, he should not be stupid enough to show it off in front of others. So, it is difficult for people to find it under normal circumstances. Vision, who has the Mind Stone, can be said to be a very powerful superhero. But he was attacked by Corvus Glaive without knowing it. If he hadn't known where Vision was in advance and arranged in advance, how could Corvus Glaive hit the target so accurately? There should be a person or organization that is extremely good at obtaining intelligence around Thanos. When Li Qingyan was thinking about the relationship between the Infinity Stones, he found that he almost overlooked the problem. Why can Thanos grasp the dynamics of all the Infinity Stones so accurately? Why can he control the entire universe so easily and arrange accurately? If there is no powerful intelligence network, how can he do this? He has already obtained the Power Stone, and it should be difficult for Star-Lord and other members of the Guardians of the Galaxy to have any intersection. But they are still gathered together now, and they happen to come to the land of nothingness. There is obviously a problem here. Behind all these events, there may be an invisible hand that is silently pushing. Perhaps this hand is the intelligence personnel or organization that Thanos has arranged in secret. It is also possible that, as shown in the American TV series Loki, it was Kong the Conqueror, the time manipulator, who was deliberately fiddling with it. But the time manipulator can only design, but cannot forcibly change people's thoughts and souls. Without the power gem, there is no reason for the Guardians of the Galaxy to gather together, and the time manipulator cannot forcibly change this setting. Unless he personally stepped in to guide it. But this kind of thing is unacceptable to the Time Administration Bureau, which is detached from the outside and wants not to affect the normal development of the timeline and the story. So, the most likely explanation is that there is a special person hiding beside Thanos, who is forcibly intervening and guiding with her own abilities so that things develop like this. In order to create more opportunities for Thanos to successfully obtain the Infinity Gems. And this person would do this, which means that she is likely to know about Li Qingyan's situation. Big Clock, can you observe anything unusual around me? Li Qingyan had suspicions in his heart. In the setting of Marvel Comics, Thanos has not only 4 Obsidian Generals but 5 Obsidian Generals. In addition to the 4 who appear in the movie, there is also a superstar. She is very mysterious and also possesses extremely powerful abilities. Mind control, telepathy, mental transmission, memory stealing. She can control certain people remotely and use them to obtain information for herself. If you can't get it through control, you can get it through telepathy and memory stealing. She can even directly transmit her spirit, allowing some people to directly become her fanatical believers, or fanatical believers of Thanos, and then use this to expand their military power. Of course, if we follow the conventional operations of the movie universe and comic universe, almost every character who appears will have his abilities reduced to a certain extent. Therefore, if this superstar really exists, her specific abilities remain to be verified. But what is certain is that she must be good at intelligence gathering. Because her position among the 5 Obsidian Generals is to collect intelligence. Since the Big Clock entered this world, there has never been an abnormal situation around you. The Big Clock reported, it is a celestial computer bound to Li Qingyan. From the moment Li Qingyan traveled through time, the Big Clock was there. It has naturally been doing this from the beginning to detect the situation around Li Qingyan at any time. Just like the Big Clock collects supernatural factors from the beginning. So, you're safe with me, Li Qingyan said. However, Li Qingyan still could not make a conclusion as to whether the superstar existed and whether she would become a threat. At least judging from the current situation, there are indeed people secretly promoting all this. Without deliberately avoiding it, Li Qingyan put away the power gem and walked out of the room. This place of nothingness is a large-scale black market trading place in the universe, and people come and go from time to time, so Li Qingyan's movement here would not attract anyone's attention. But today, as soon as he walked out of the room, he already attracted the attention of many people around him. The workers who were working here for the collector, the merchants and thieves who came in and out of this place, as well as the newly arrived Star-Lord and others all looked towards Li Qingyan. Something is not right. Li Qingyan sighed in his heart. He has seen it and seen the thoughts in the hearts of the people around him. More than half of them were greedy and wanted to catch Li Qingyan and rob him of his property. And here, there are still a few people with weird thoughts. The big clock couldn't read their thoughts, but it was obvious that there was something wrong with these people at a glance. Finally, there are the funny guys from Guardians of the Galaxy. They don't have greedy thoughts, but they are all full of curiosity. Especially Star-Lord. This is the first time he meets Earthlings in the universe. Earthling. He knows I'm an Earthling. Li Qingyan frowned slightly. The situation seemed to be more serious than he thought. This pool of water in the Marvel Universe is not as simple as it seems on the surface. Someone must have leaked his identity information and secretly promoted this situation. What should we do now? Leave directly, the big clock asked. If you can't find the answer directly, then just take advantage of the situation and enter this game. Li Qingyan answered. The big clock didn't express any other opinions. It served as the super soldier's auxiliary computer. Whatever the master wanted to do, it assisted him to do it. With my current strength, there are not many people in the universe who want to compete with me, and even fewer who want to kill me. In this world, if you know where the danger is, you can prevent it early, but if you don't know it, you must take the initiative to find it out. Visible dangers are always much safer than invisible dangers. Li Qingyan is no longer the rookie he was when he just traveled through time. He became a super soldier and upgraded to the third-generation super soldier. He was equipped with an unactivated void engine in his body, and he also held the Sword of Heaven and 4 infinite gems in his hands. Now that he knows that someone is targeting him, how can he remain indifferent? Rather than escaping, it is better to face it proactively. Monitor all the situations around you at all times. If you find any situation that is beyond your control, tell me immediately. If necessary, you can open the wormhole in advance and transfer me back to the Earth. Li Qingyan gave this instruction to the big clock. Then, he walked directly towards Star-Lord. Star-Lord knows that he is from Earth, so there must be some other information in Star-Lord's hands. Li Qingyan cannot directly read all the information in Star-Lord's body. This is because he has the genes of ego from the Celestial clan in his body. But Star-Lord's strength was not taken seriously by Li Qingyan at all. How did you know I'm from Earth? Li Qingyan went straight to the point, and the aura on his body spread out at this moment. It was powerful dark energy. A huge dark shadow appeared behind Li Qingyan, bringing huge pressure to everyone around him. After the dark matter plane space began to be constructed, Li Qingyan had the ability to open this state. And he was not like Zhe Xiaolun and Lu Chuang, who could only use it in an unconscious state. He can now control it freely, and can release it specifically for certain specific groups of people. Answer me. Li Qingyan looked at Star-Lord, the huge dark shadow, and his eyes were emitting a faint light at this moment, and he was directly locked on Star-Lord. Even though Star-Lord grew up in the universe and followed the plunderer Yondu, he was knowledgeable, but at this moment he was frightened and trembled all over, and involuntarily stepped back several steps. I heard a cellmate say it in the prison of the Nova Corps. He told us that there is a human from the Earth in the void, and this human has the Infinity Stone in his hand. Star-Lord answered, and his words, under the detection of the big clock, did not judge that there was any lying. The big clock could not directly read all the information in Star-Lord's brain. But emotional fluctuations and the information he was extremely concerned about could still be detected. Under such a strong deterrence from Li Qingyan, if what Star-Lord said was false, the big clock would definitely be able to tell. What about you? Li Qingyan turned around and looked at the people who gathered around him with weapons in their hands. In fact, the main focus was on those who were controlled by some special means. These people were controlled, but Li Qingyan didn't let the big clock analyze how they were controlled. Because sometimes, taking action directly is more direct than analyzing. Moreover, he also wanted to see how the people hiding behind them would deal with him in the face of such direct inquiries. Stop playing tricks here. I don't believe that you alone can be the opponent of all of us here. Hand over the treasures on you and your infinite gems, otherwise, die. These people were shocked by Li Qingyan's dark projection at first, but at this moment, they all reacted and chose to ignore it one by one. For these people, there are so many strange things in the universe. But in the end, a large part of them are just playing tricks. They are the craziest group of people in the universe, a group of people who can occupy this void and dig out the precious materials hidden in the heads of the gods to obtain resources. Really, Li Qingyan smiled. He looked at these people coldly, and summoned the sword of Tianxia casually. Originally, he had no intention of killing people here, thinking that in Guardians of the Galaxy 3, the void would be transformed into a huge mobile interstellar spaceship, and it would also be a place where the Guardians of the Galaxy could help rescue a large number of children and animals controlled by the Supreme Evolution. But now it seems that he was wrong. The void was originally the center of the universe's black market transactions, and here, it was simply a place where a group of lawless people gathered. The changes in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 were because this place had already been cleaned many times. Ronan's arrival cleaned it once. Thanos cleaned it again when he came to get the ether particles. In the end, the Guardians of the Galaxy used this place as their headquarters, and naturally drove away some of the original disobedient people. This is why there are so few people left in the void in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. After washing the sand in the big waves, the remaining sand is the good sand. Sword, look, the place in the middle of the sword. It's the reality gem, that's the infinity gem. It's the reality gem that the collector said has the powerful power to change reality. Someone recognized it, recognized the ether particles attached to the Tianxia sword. This void is now controlled by the collector, and the collector naturally recognizes the infinity gem. Everyone, come together and grab the ether particles. I don't know who shouted first. Afterwards, all the people who gathered rushed out immediately. They waved swords or held long-range laser guns and cannons to attack Li Qingyan. Li Qingyan stood in place, but the power of thunder flashed on his body. The power of thunder and lightning began to erupt at this moment, and a black and gold armor was summoned on his body. The laser shot at Li Qingyan fell on the armor, leaving only a short mark, and then as the energy dissipated, the mark quickly disappeared. The Tianxia sword turned over, not attacking anyone, but directly stabbed into the ground. The long sword instantly penetrated the ground and was inserted half a meter deep into the ground. As the long sword was inserted into the ground, countless lightning suddenly exploded with the long sword as the center. The lightning spread and appeared at the feet of those who besieged Li Qingyan. This lightning contained extremely strong power. The electric shock effect it produced and the powerful energy it brought instantly swallowed all these people. Without exception, they were all knocked down, and some of those with weaker defense were directly electrocuted into charcoal. Those people on the periphery, who originally thought of picking up the leaks after the first batch of people charged, were all dumbfounded at this moment. Some of them had begun to retreat involuntarily, while others picked up the laser cannon in their hands and aimed at Li Qingyan, preparing for another wave of attacks directly aimed at the head. Li Qingyan drew out the long sword, and his left hand casually grabbed in the air, and a black sharp knife appeared in his hand. Lightning continued to emerge from the sharp knife, and the sharp knife was also suspended in the air under the influence of this lightning. Go! While speaking softly, the sharp knife flew out directly as if it had a spirit. It turned into a stream of light and slid across a person's forehead in an instant. The sharpness of the sharp knife allowed it to pass through the person's skull as easily as passing through a piece of mist. What's more terrifying is that after passing through the person's head, it immediately disappeared, and when it appeared again, it would be in front of the next target. It appeared very quickly, and it still pierced through in the same way. The next scene was repeated continuously. The flying knife passed through a person's head or heart, and then quickly disappeared, and randomly appeared in front of another person. Li Qingyan stood there motionless, but the hundreds of people who had originally gathered around were killed by Li Qingyan at the beginning, and then the flying knife killed the rest in one breath. Whether they came with a try mentality or those who were controlled and secretly promoted this incident, all were without exception. Just a short minute or two later, in this huge square, besides Li Qingyan, only the Guardians of the Galaxy could still stand there. They originally came to the land of nothingness for the Infinity Stones. But when Li Qingyan showed a huge dark projection, they were scared. After all, they were not like those people who valued money over life, and most of them did not come simply to rob the Infinity Stones. Gamora was here to prevent Thanos from getting the Infinity Stones. Rocket Raccoon just wanted to join in the fun. Groot, the Tree Man, came purely with Rocket Raccoon. Drax the Destroyer wanted to find Ronan. Only Star-Lord wanted to get the Infinity Stones and then sell them. But Star-Lord was the first person to feel the huge pressure brought by Li Qingyan's dark matter plane space projection. Therefore, the impact and shock he received were far more terrifying than others. Because he had traveled more and seen more in the universe in the past, he understood what the appearance of this projection meant. Just now, everyone else took action, only he did not dare to act rashly. Star-Lord did not move, and the other members of the Guardians of the Galaxy naturally did not rush to move. And this delay allowed them to see Li Qingyan's move and those people fall quickly. This time they didn't just stay still, they didn't dare to move at all. A random sword strike could trigger lightning and burn hundreds of people to death, and a small flying knife could accurately snipe and kill the remaining hundreds of people. Li Qingyan's attack method was too terrifying. Now they could only pray that Li Qingyan would not kill them. The black sharp knife covered by lightning had disappeared again. As for the sword of heavenly destruction, Li Qingyan took it in his hand casually. The reality gem embedded in the long sword continued to emit a faint light. But at this moment, those who saw it no longer wanted to snatch it. The people of the Guardians of the Galaxy were like this, and the collector who was watching the scene here through surveillance and telescopes from afar was also like this. How could it be so powerful? The collector was shocked. This incident was originally secretly participated in and promoted by him. Although some external forces were involved in it, he, the collector, was the ruler of the land of nothingness after all. Without his approval and participation, how could outsiders mobilize so many people to do this at once? The sword in his hand is very special. The collector shifted his attention to the sword of heavenly destruction in Li Qingyan's hand. He didn't recognize this sword, but he could see at a glance that the sword itself was powerful. Although the number of people killed by the small flying knife is not much less than that of the Tianxia sword, the small flying knife kills people by speed and elusiveness. The Tianxia sword is different. It was only used once, and the moment it landed, it burst out an electric current that was enough to cover hundreds of meters and kill everyone in this range. This is because Li Qingyan used his own ability. But the moment the Tianxia sword was inserted into the ground, it obviously burst out with power. And this power strengthened the lightning power that Li Qingyan burst out, making its lethality much greater in an instant. Are you interested in my sword? Suddenly, the Tianxia sword, which was still in his telescope, appeared directly in front of him. Li Qingyan came directly to the collector in the blink of an eye. This speed was beyond the collector's expectation. He also didn't expect Li Qingyan to find him from such a distance. What do you want to do? The collector had doubts in his heart, but these doubts were no longer important. Li Qingyan's sword was already in front of him. With Li Qingyan's strength, if he really wanted to do it, the collector would definitely die. Tell me, who is the person behind you who asked you to do it to me? As Li Qingyan said this, his eye of insight also fell on the collector at this time. If you don't tell me, I can also directly invade your brain and find out everything. But in that case, maybe your brain will be completely destroyed, and you will become a fool from now on. Li Qingyan was naturally trying to scare the collector. With the eye of insight, he can directly read a lot of information about the collector without hurting him. He just wanted to use this method to test whether there were any hidden people around him. A person who could not even be detected by the big clock, and who could secretly lurk and set up this game after Li Qingyan entered the void. I say, whatever you want to know, I can tell you. The longer a person lives, the more he cherishes his life. The real age of the collector cannot be inspected, but there is no doubt that it is more than 1,000,000 years or even longer. As an old antique, he doesn't have much ability, so he has lived to this day by being cautious. Now that he has been caught by Li Qingyan, he doesn't care if he sells out his teammates or even himself in order to save his life. That was a woman whose whole body was hidden under a special silver cloak. She didn't appear in the void, but appeared in my mind through mental transmission. She told me that you have the Infinity Stones in your hand, and you don't know how to use the power of the Infinity Stones. She said that she needs to launch a plan against you here, and I just need to keep silent, and she will take care of everything else. So, I didn't participate in this matter at all. These troublemakers were controlled and guided by that woman. I didn't intend to target you from the beginning, and I didn't even leave this room. The collector said sincerely, but he looked like a frightened bird, and his words were still untrue. He said that he didn't participate at all, but in fact, he was secretly promoting all this. However, he was telling most of the truth. She appeared in his mind through mental transmission, told him the situation and asked him to cooperate. And this was a woman hiding under a silver cloak. These data seem to have gradually shown that Li Qingyan's previous guess is likely to be correct. The person who is constantly stirring up trouble in the dark may be the last of the Black Obsidian generals who has never appeared beside Thanos, the superstar. She should know that you have the ability to detect abnormalities around you, so she has never dared to appear by your side, and has not even appeared in my detection range. The big clock reminded. With the big clock's ability to control and monitor dark energy, if that person is really a superstar, then the big clock will definitely be able to detect her the moment she appears. She uses the ability of mental transmission. The effect produced by this ability is no longer within the scope of conventional cosmic energy. It is normal that you cannot detect it. Li Qingyan did not think that there was anything wrong with the big clock failing to monitor the supergiant. The big clock's ability was based on the existing technological level of the super god universe. In the super god universe, the big clock can use light energy, dark energy, and even void energy, and it can also find all material things. But the supergiant hid far away and infiltrated with mental power, which could jump out of the big clock's monitoring range in both energy and material fields. She can't completely avoid my detection. As long as she enters my range, even if she hides herself by other special means, I can still check her. The big clock said. So, she should have some special perception that can quickly escape when you are about to detect her range. Li Qingyan would not doubt the big clock's ability. From beginning to end, he inferred the special ability of the supergiant. Give you time to prepare. Expand the exploration range with me as the center to 1 light-year away in an instant. How long will it take to prepare? Li Qingyan wanted to find the guy hiding behind the scenes and find the supergiant. The best way is to catch her off guard and suddenly expand the detection range of the big clock. She should not have time to sense the detection of the big clock's dark communication. Even if she senses it, she will not have time to escape from this range. 5 minutes. The big clock gave an accurate answer, and then it began to accumulate energy. Chapter 71. This is not a gradual expansion. This is to expand the precise detection that originally existed only within 100 miles around Li Qingyan to all areas within a light year in an instant. To achieve such a degree in an instant, it is naturally necessary to prepare in advance. The last 5 seconds. 3.2.1. Master all information within a light year range, open. In an instant, a majestic energy instantly spread to the entire space within a light year range. With Li Qingyan as the center and the void as the center, everything is under the control of the big clock and Li Qingyan. At the moment when the energy of the big clock spread, a figure hidden in the shadow in an asteroid belt outside the void suddenly exclaimed. Not good. She is exactly what Li Qingyan is looking for, the one who is secretly pushing many things and trying to stick to Li Qingyan. Among her abilities, there is the characteristic of being able to sense the surrounding energy fluctuations. Although she does not understand the situation of the big clock monitoring all information data within a certain range through dark energy, she also knows that this range is not for her to approach. Therefore, she had been hiding outside the detection range of the big clock for a long time. But today, she miscalculated. She didn't expect that the big clock would expand its detection range so much in an instant. Found it. Li Qingyan frowned, and chopped down with the Tianxia sword in his hand. A wormhole appeared in front of him, and he entered it directly with lightning speed. 1 step out, it was the asteroid belt. His eyes locked on the man wearing a silver cloak who was running away quickly. Li Qingyan's speed was faster than the other party. The Tianxia sword was swung, and a strong light immediately flew out from the tip of the sword and chopped towards the back of the supergiant. The supergiant sensed a strong light flying behind him, looked back, and found that it was an arc of sword energy. Both hands were clenched into fists at the same time, and a burst of silver-white light burst out instantly. Her silver cloak is not an ordinary cloth, but is made of super high technology. It has the function of making the supergiant invisible. It is also an extremely strong defensive weapon that can withstand the attack of extremely powerful lasers. But this time its defense failed. The sword light that Li Qingyan casually slashed out was actually a blow at the level of Void Warrior. Although Li Qingyan wanted to spare her life and wanted to capture her alive to learn more information, he controlled the power to a very small extent when he attacked. But this sword still broke through the defense of her cloak and chopped directly on her back. If she hadn't had a set of silver armor on her body, this sword would have been enough to tear her skin apart. Even with the silver armor, she was still knocked out by the impact of the sword light, and fell heavily on a huge rock hundreds of meters away. A mouthful of blood spurted out. She has always been responsible for inquiring and collecting intelligence in the shadows, and this is the first time she has been injured so badly. Still want to escape? Li Qingyan jumped directly in front of the superstar. Looking at the blue-skinned girl lying on the ground with blood hanging from the corner of her mouth, Li Qingyan confirmed his previous guess. This person is the superstar. Among the 5 obsidian generals, the one who did not appear in the movie. How did you detect my existence? The superstar raised his head and looked at the handsome Earth man in front of him. She has studied Li Qingyan for a long time. Although at most it was only through remote mental invasion, some people who appeared around Li Qingyan observed and studied Li Qingyan. Although she could not get too much information about Li Qingyan. But she also knew Li Qingyan's ability a long time ago, so she was on guard early. But she never thought that Li Qingyan would find her so easily today. You control others to monitor me through mental invasion and mental control, which can indeed prevent you from being directly detected by me. But the appearance of the Guardians of the Galaxy this time, and the movement of the entire void, are too weird. These unreasonable things naturally make me think that someone is stealing information related to me and then secretly controlling everything. Li Qingyan said. However, what I am most curious about now is how did you know that the Power Stone was in my hand? You have no way of knowing my journey to Morag. After I left Earth, even if you had the ability of mind control, you could not keep up with me in a short time, let alone invade Heimdall and Thor on the Rainbow Bridge of Asgard. They were too close to me at the time. If their minds were disturbed, even if it was just a momentary change, I would definitely be able to detect it. And both of them are gods, and they are extremely powerful gods. Your mind control and mind invasion can invade the brains of ordinary people without being noticed, but it is absolutely impossible to invade their brains without causing any abnormalities. So, from the time I left Earth to the time before I came to the land of nothingness, you should have known nothing about my situation. Li Qingyan and the Big Clock are unable to detect the invasion of mental control on people in the land of nothingness. But Li Qingyan and Big Clock had already taken precautions. In order to prevent the super god technology from being leaked, they even set up a barrier around them that even Heimdall and Odin could not detect. Therefore, in the manner where Li Qingyan lives, as well as those who have more daily contact with Li Qingyan, they are absolutely safe. Just through some people on the periphery, it is impossible for Superstar to obtain such accurate information. You have the power gem, and the guide told me about your visit to Vormir. The superstar answered, and at this time, she looked at the starry sky not far away. There, a honeycomb-like cosmic network appeared, and then a huge spaceship flew out of it. Inside the spaceship, countless small spacecraft rushed out immediately. Ronin. The ship that Li Qingyan recognized was the Dark Star of Ronin the Accuser. Mind control. The superstar shouted lowly, and a powerful mental force immediately invaded Li Qingyan's brain. Li Qingyan frowned. Dark energy exploded instantly, and his brain's computing speed also increased rapidly at this moment. Mental control is unlikely to succeed for Li Qingyan, whose thinking ability has become stronger as his brain development increases. However, this moment of invasion gave the superstar an opportunity. She was not stupid enough to launch a surprise attack on Li Qingyan. Instead, after launching this attack, she immediately entered the invisible state and fled as fast as possible. Li Qingyan recovered quickly. He can also sense the location of the superstar. But before he could take action against the superstar again, countless laser beams came pouring out like raindrops. That was the Dark Legion under Ronin, and it was those small spaceships that were attacking. Li Qingyan is a third-generation super soldier, although ordinary attacks can hardly harm him. But these lasers shot from the small spacecraft still have a certain effect. Most importantly, there are too many of them. Facing the attack of this huge number of dark legions, Li Qingyan had to temporarily stop his pursuit of the superstar. And his temporary stop gave the superstar enough time to escape. Already in a state of invisibility, coupled with the unannounced space door opened by the dark star, the supergiant quickly escaped from the control of Li Qingyan. This woman can actually physically jump through space. Li Qingyan felt surprised when he looked at the space gate where the superstar had just disappeared. She doesn't just rely on her body. The armor on her body is specially forged. Even her cloak is anything but ordinary. Otherwise, it would be impossible to withstand the attack of the Sword of Heaven. The big clock analyzed that it had locked on the supergiant from the beginning and had recorded the supergiant's data in the most detailed manner. Nowadays, as time goes by, more and more information can be obtained through analysis. You should have recorded her energy and blood factors, right? The big clock collects useful supernatural factors all the time, and this superstar's ability is so special that the big clock can never miss it. It has been recorded and is being analyzed. It will be integrated with it soon. The big clock answered. Very good. Li Qingyan was very satisfied with this answer. Now, let's come to these guys and calculate the debt for letting the superstar go. His eyes turned to the dark star ahead. If it hadn't been for the sudden appearance of the dark star just now, the supergiant would never have been able to escape. Moreover, this time Li Qingyan not only discovered a superstar. Superstar has no way of knowing the information about Li Qingyan before he left the earth and went to the land of void. What she just said was the information provided to her by the guide. So is this guide the Red Skull, the Soul Gem guide of Vormir? He is not completely sure yet. They are here for the Infinity Stones. Putting aside the matter of the superstar for the time being, the priority now must be the Dark Star and Ronan the Accuser. I know. Li Qingyan naturally knew what Ronan was doing here. The information that he possesses the Power Stone has been known to Superstar, and Ronan appeared so timely and rescued Superstar. Naturally, Superstar lured them here in advance. Boy, do you have an infinite gem in your hand? Ronan's projection appeared in front of Li Qingyan. With the technology of their Kree Empire, it is not difficult to achieve this level. Yes, there are more than one. Now that Superstar already knows that Li Qingyan has many Infinity Stones, he no longer needs to hide them. The sword of Tianxia in his hand danced twice deliberately, and the red light of the ether particles appeared directly at this moment. He even specially summoned the power gem and played with it casually in his hands. The two Infinity Stones, especially the Power Stone, can destroy a living planet with one blow. Ronan broke away from the Kree Empire in order to seek revenge on the Nova Corps. But relying solely on the military power in his hands is not enough to compete with the entire Nova Corps. Therefore, he needs to use more powerful power. And this power was originally Thanos. But now, he feels that he can directly use this power gem to obtain it. Give me the Power Stone and I'll let you go, Ronan said, and at the same time, thousands of small spaceships had gathered around Li Qingyan. These spaceships are all aimed at Li Qingyan. As long as Ronan gives the order, they will fire immediately. Since you want it, then come and get it yourself. Li Qingyan casually put the power gem back into the dark matter plane space. Court death, Ronan said angrily, and almost at the same time, all the spaceships around Li Qingyan began to attack. Thousands of laser beams were all fired at this moment, and they were all aimed at Li Qingyan. However, the moment the laser arrived, Li Qingyan disappeared. How could conventional attacks pose a threat to Li Qingyan, who has now mastered the use of micro-wormholes? Facing these attacks, he just took a random step and moved out of their attack range. Sword of Heaven, Shadow of Void. On the Tianxia sword, the power of the void burst out directly at this moment. Countless phantom clones appeared next to Li Qingyan. After these clones appeared, they immediately flew in all directions at the same time. They ignored the Dark Legion's spaceship and entered directly into the spaceship. Although it is just a phantom clone, the Tianxia sword in this clone's hand still has powerful attack power. They penetrated the outer layer of the spacecraft and entered the interior of the spacecraft. The attack of the Sword of Heavenly Destruction directly landed on the throat and heart of the soldiers and other vital parts. In this attack, all the pilots of the thousands of spacecrafts around were killed. This was Li Qingyan's attack. It was the first time that the Sword of Heavenly Destruction, as a Void Warrior, released its power. What kind of ability is this? Ronan's face changed in shock. He just witnessed everything. He saw Li Qingyan disappear at the attack coordinates of the spacecraft in an instant, and then move to the periphery of the spacecraft. The long sword was swung and transformed into countless phantoms, and the attacks of these phantoms killed all the pilots in his thousands of Dark Legion spacecrafts. Attack, attack all. Ronan felt an inexplicable fear in his heart, but he was unwilling to give up this opportunity. All the combat spacecrafts in the Dark Star flew out of the mothership at this moment. They flew towards Li Qingyan regardless of the cost. Catch the leader first. Li Qingyan's eyes fell on the Dark Star. To fight against Ronan's entire Dark Legion, Li Qingyan might need to expend a lot of energy. But if it was just to kill Ronan alone, it would be easy for Li Qingyan. Lock the coordinates of the Dark Star command room. Li Qingyan flew directly through the wormhole. In an instant, Li Qingyan was behind Ronan, and at this moment, the Sword of Heaven's Destruction, without any hesitation, chopped directly towards Ronan's neck. Ronan was shocked by Li Qingyan's sword. He instinctively dodged back, but Li Qingyan's sword did not directly cut off his head. On Ronan's head was a helmet commonly worn by the Kree Empire's accusers. Although this helmet doesn't look very good, it is a defensive helmet made with the highest technology of the Kree Empire. The material it is made of is extremely strong and is difficult to be damaged by ordinary attacks. The body of the accuser Ronan itself has also been modified by multiple drugs. Ronan was able to defeat Drax the Destroyer with his bare hands, and Drax was able to withstand multiple laser cannon attacks in subsequent movies. Therefore, with Ronan's defense power, it is difficult for regular attacks to damage him. His own defense was amazing, and his helmet blocked it. The most important thing was that Li Qingyan did not hit his vital part. The response was pretty good. Li Qingyan turned around and looked at Ronan, who was still in shock. Hateful. He reached out to explore and found a bloody gash on his neck. Ronan, the accuser who has always been a high-ranking member of the Kree Empire, has not been hurt in a long time. Now he was actually injured by Li Qingyan as soon as he came up, and if he hadn't just avoided it, his neck would have been cut off directly. The huge sense of crisis, coupled with the pain caused by being injured at this moment, has made him extremely angry. Come on, kill this guy. Ronan roared angrily, and everyone in the command room took out their weapons and rushed towards Li Qingyan. Li Qingyan looked at these people and smiled contemptuously. How could such a group of shrimp soldiers and crab generals have an impact on themselves? The sword of Tiansha was swung randomly a few times, and sword energy flew out from the blade. In an instant, all these people who came to fight were killed by Li Qingyan. It's a breeze, no difficulty at all. How can this be? Ronan looked at the people who fell on the ground with some disbelief, especially when he saw that the pursuer chorus was also among the pile of fallen bodies. He was even more shocked. This is the most capable general under his command, and his combat effectiveness is also very strong. But now, like other soldiers, he was killed by Li Qingyan's sword casually. Nothing is impossible. Li Qingyan sneered and looked at Ronan in front of him. You think you are strong, but in fact you are just a clown. Even if I give you the Power Stone, you won't be able to fulfill your wish to destroy Xandar. It wasn't that Li Qingyan looked down upon Ronan in front of him, but that he actually failed to destroy Xandar. In the movie, Ronan, who got the Power Stone, was embarrassed to death by Star-Lord's dance. Embarrassed, and then died. Stop looking down on others. Ronan suppressed the fear in his heart, raised his war hammer, and rushed towards Li Qingyan. Li Qingyan stepped forward with his left foot and raised the Sword of Heaven. At the moment when Ronan rushed over and was about to reach him, he stepped out suddenly and slashed down with the Sword of Tiansha. This sword was a sword that Li Qingyan used all his strength. Knowing that Ronan was wearing a sturdy helmet, he also knew that his physical defense was amazing. But with this sword, Li Qingyan was 100% sure that Ronan would never be able to withstand it. Clang! The Tiansha sword struck directly from Ronan's head, diagonally, splitting his head in half. The war hammer he raised was frozen in midair at this moment. It wasn't until a moment later that he fell to the ground with his body. Blood flowed out from the split head, along with the paste on the ground. I used to think that to fight a supervillain, you have to keep pulling back and forth, and you need superb fighting skills. But now it seems that under the absolute power, all of that is completely useless. It can be said that Li Qingyan took action in the void this time with great ease. With 2 simple moves in the land of nothingness, more than 1,000 thugs on the black market were slaughtered. In space, the power of the Sword of Heaven exploded, instantly killing all the pilots and thousands of aircraft. Now in the command room of the Dark Star, Ronan the Accuser, one of the great villains in the galaxy, was killed with 1 sword. He has now begun to yearn for the fighting style of Holy Kesha. Just sit on the throne, move your fingers casually, and then command the Silver Wings to easily eliminate the enemy. If the Silver Wings can't solve it, there is still a huge Judgment Angel. The Demon King Liang Bing, who was as powerful as the 4th generation god, was also grabbed by the Judgment Angel and thrown to the ground. He almost exploded with a sword. That style and momentum are so impressive. With your current abilities, you are still unable to control such a powerful god-killing weapon. Besides, without Ansu Yin, weapons like Kesha's Silver Wings cannot be made. The big clock knew what Li Qingyan was thinking at this moment, and directly explained the feasibility of these ideas. Hey, how can I say this directly? Can't you let me fantasize about it? Li Qingyan felt a little speechless. Isn't the big clock ruining his own fun? But he couldn't help it. Although the big clock was communicating with Li Qingyan in a relatively anthropomorphic way due to his own instructions. But the big clock is a machine after all. When it handles everything, it will give priority to a rational perspective. The big clock also knew what Li Qingyan was thinking at this time. Instead of dwelling on this issue, it raised a new one. Does this dark star need to be taken away? The big clock asked. Well, first transfer it to the solar system. As for the remaining people on the ship, use the wormhole to send them all into space. Li Qingyan nodded. The Dark Star was not sent directly back to Earth because there was already a Dark Elf mothership on Earth. Moreover, the Dark Star does not have the ability to be invisible like the Dark Elf mothership. Taking it back to Earth will inevitably attract global attention. Although Li Qingyan doesn't need to be afraid of anything now, there is no need for him to make the situation so complicated. There are already 2 motherships, but I only have 8 Kamigawa mechas in total. Are these too few? Li Qingyan suddenly discovered that the trophies he collected seemed to be of little use. The Dark Elf mothership stayed on Earth, although at first Li Qingyan wanted to learn about the technology in the Dark Elf mothership. But now, everything that needs to be understood is understood. Li Qingyan also understands what the black hole bomb is. Therefore, now it can only be a decoration, and 2 people have to be specially arranged to watch it. The Dark Star was transported back to the solar system, and the results were the same. Someone has to be sent to watch it, and there is no other specific use value. Maybe it will be useful in the future. Li Qingyan could only think like this. Because he couldn't bear it, he just blew up the complete mothership for nothing. The Dark Star was eventually transferred to the solar system. Li Qingyan also asked the big clock to make 2 Shinhi mechas and asked them to go to the Dark Star to take charge of the care. After dealing with the Dark Star, Li Qingyan returned to the void. He had not yet completed the complete analysis of the factors of the Celestial God group, and now he had obtained the factors of the supergiant, and Li Qingyan also wanted to analyze it. Although the combat power of the supergiant was not strong, her supernatural factors had the ability to control the mind. This ability was still very powerful. Through the method of mental invasion, it directly bypassed the big clock's exploration of energy and matter, and thus approached Li Qingyan's surroundings to obtain intelligence. Although this ability could not directly affect Li Qingyan and a group of people close to Li Qingyan, it was still very useful. Moreover, Li Qingyan had to figure out how mental power was specifically generated and what kind of energy structure it had. Only after figuring out everything could the big clock record it, and in the future, even if the supergiant used mental power to do anything, the big clock would be able to detect it. When Li Qingyan returned to the void, the guardians of the galaxy had been waiting for a long time. The remaining people in the void also walked out of their homes and watched Li Qingyan. The collector was standing in front of these people. He was the ruler here, but now, he was no longer qualified to continue to rule here. Everything depends on Li Qingyan. This man who suddenly came to the void has shocked everyone. The accuser Ronan and his army were wiped out by Li Qingyan alone. So many thugs in the void were also wiped out. Li Qingyan is already a powerful existence that can shock a country with his own strength. Star-Lord, come here. Li Qingyan ignored the others and looked at Star-Lord. Yes, Star-Lord did not dare to be negligent. He came directly to Li Qingyan. You have the energy factor of the Celestials in your body. Do you want to try to stimulate it? Celestials. Star-Lord was stunned. Celestials. He only knew the Celestials, which were the most powerful monsters in the universe. The place they were standing on at the moment was the head of a dead Celestial. The Celestials are very similar to the Celestials. As for whether they are the same race, I can't make a direct judgment now. But there is no doubt that you have the genes of the Celestials in your body, so I can stimulate the energy contained in the genes of the Celestials for you. Li Qingyan looked at Star-Lord. Just when he sees the Dark Star, Li Qingyan had the idea of forming his own forces and gathering more people. And to gather people, there is a group of suitable people in front of him. These members of the Guardians of the Galaxy and the remaining residents in the Void can all be used. In Guardians of the Galaxy 3, didn't the Guardians of the Galaxy become the managers of the Void, and even transform the entire Void into a huge spaceship? Li Qingyan took a fancy to the abilities of these people, and he could also help them further develop their abilities. Although, they are all a group of funny people. But if they are used well, they can also become a great help. You have to stimulate the energy in my body for me, so what should I do for you? After all, Star-Lord grew up with the plunderer Yondu, and his vigilance is always very high. There is no friendship between Li Qingyan and him, but now he suddenly said that he would stimulate his potential in his body, which is obviously problematic. Be my subordinate. Subordinate, Star-Lord frowned. This is a very serious word. In the past, he was under the command of Yondu, although he was also a subordinate, but in fact he was much freer than ordinary people. But now this Li Qingyan is obviously different from Yondu. Li Qingyan's strength is really too strong. If he really becomes Li Qingyan's subordinate and wants to rebel again, the result is probably almost the same as seeking death. But the question now is, can he refuse? No. Before Star-Lord began to ask questions, Li Qingyan gave a direct answer. This made Star-Lord, who was already nervous, feel even more helpless at this moment. This is not only powerful, but also can see through his mind directly. Once you become my subordinate, I can track you down no matter where you go. You have no reason or power to refuse the orders I give you. Moreover, you cannot refuse this. The only choice you have is to accept my awakening of your abilities or not. Li Qingyan said it directly. Not only you, but all the people with you are my subordinates. Your first task is to complete the governance and transformation of the Void. From now on, the Void is a small base of mine, Li Qingyan, in the universe, and you are an outpost to help me manage this base and monitor the entire universe at the same time. Li Qingyan's words not only made Star-Lord speechless, but also made the Guardians of the Galaxy and everyone in the Void speechless. Li Qingyan was directly issuing a notice, and it was a notice that no one could refuse to execute. You can try to resist directly, but the result of resisting. The corpses of more than 1,000 people who had been killed instantly were still lying on the ground around them. Since I have to become your subordinate no matter what, then I naturally want to gain stronger power. Star-Lord didn't hesitate any longer. Anyway, there is no choice anymore, so let's try to get as many benefits as possible. This is the power of the Celestial Clan. After you obtain it, you will become half a god. Very good. Li Qingyan is very satisfied with Xingju's choice. Rocket, come here too. Li Qingyan looked at Rocket Raccoon. Rocket Raccoon was a little hesitant. He didn't expect Li Qingyan to call his name. During the transformation of your body, the Supreme Evolution implanted a self-destruct program. I will help you disable it this time. Li Qingyan spoke casually, but when his words reached Rocket Raccoon's ears, they shook his mind like thunder. The Supreme Evolution. Rocket Raccoon has never mentioned his experience to outsiders, and no one knows what his origin is. But now, Li Qingyan directly revealed his relationship with the Supreme Evolution, and even knew that the Supreme Evolution had the secret of a self-destruction program in his body. No need to be afraid. Li Qingyan looked at Rocket Raccoon, who was hesitant at this time, and said with relief. Since you are already my subordinates, when you do things for me, I will also protect you. If one day the Supreme Evolution really comes to your door, and you are unable to compete on your own, just come to me directly. Li Qingyan gave Rocket Raccoon a shot in the arm. It's just the highest evolution. To Li Qingyan, it's not a big deal. It is said that he has the most invention patents in the universe, and has the ability to allow organisms and humans to evolve directly for millions of years. But in fact, the supreme evolution is just a petty person. Seeing that Rocket Raccoon has a smarter brain than him, he wants to make himself smarter by directly obtaining Rocket Raccoon's brain. He said that he can even master gravity, how powerful he is. But in the end, he was killed by a joint attack by the Guardians of the Galaxy. The Supreme Evolution has a loud name, but the way he died and what he did were really not up to the standard. Integrating dark energy into Star-Lord's body, stimulating the energy of the Celestials in his genes, making Star-Lord have the power of a true demigod. And the self-destruction program in Rocket Raccoon's body, with the computing power of the big clock, it is a matter of minutes to crack this program. After dealing with the situation of Star-Lord and Rocket Raccoon, they will take over the rule of the entire void. As for the collector, he left. Li Qingyan did not stop him. What he wanted was this void, an outpost that would take root in the universe in the future. The collector had no effect on Li Qingyan. 3 days later, Li Qingyan completed the analysis of the Celestial God Group Factor. What are the specific data of this Celestial God Group Factor? Li Qingyan entered the dark matter plane space and looked at a group of light spots in front of him. This is the supernatural factor of the Celestial God Group, a peculiar factor that contains the energy characteristics of their Celestial God Group. This factor has very powerful energy. In terms of the level of quantity, it is even more powerful than the lightning factor of Thor. They were born in the planet and were born by obtaining the energy supply of the planet's intelligent life for tens of millions of years. After they were born, they had the ability to create a star system. The big clock explained, have the ability to create a star system. Li Qingyan actually recognized this ability. Although Li Qingyan has a strong combat power, it seems that it is difficult for him to create a star system at his current level. Unless the operation mode of a certain star system is precisely controlled and simulated through the big clock, it can be finally realized. The simulation ability of the big clock can even simulate the birth and evolution of a universe. But the big clock does not have the ability to create matter directly. It can only create by transforming the surrounding environment and using the original matter in the universe. If you merge the factors of the celestial group now, the power you can obtain will not be very strong, because it needs to absorb the life force of a planet for a long time to continue to grow. The big clock reminded, this is not difficult, right? Li Qingyan did not care much about this. The celestial group can rely on the Earth to obtain powerful life energy, and I can naturally obtain the same life energy based on the Earth. Moreover, through energy docking, it may also be possible to guide the energy of some other life planets in the universe to me. In Li Qingyan's understanding, the way the celestial group obtains power to be born is the same as the gods absorbing faith. However, the celestials created a star system, left the seeds of the celestials in the life planet, and obtained energy through the entire process from the birth to the development of life. And because it was originally nurtured inside the planet, it would destroy the life planet itself after birth. But Li Qingyan didn't need to do that. He could completely collect the required life energy through the big clock. Through special tools like altars, other life planets can be bound to themselves, so that they can naturally obtain the life energy of multiple planets at one time, so that they can obtain energy faster. The nurturing of the celestials took billions of years, and Li Qingyan would naturally shorten the time required by this method. If that's the case, I'm afraid you have to rule more life planets. The big clock has understood Li Qingyan's intention. This method is the same as the birth and development of a main god civilization. The death god Karl created the Death Song Academy with himself as the center, and there were only a few people around him. But the Death Song Academy was built in the Dark Nebula, and all the life planets in the entire Dark Nebula actually belong to him. The Teoti core and the Giant Wolf core are only a part of the life planets that are ruled. However, the death god Karl studies death and the void. In the Dark Nebula where he is, life is consumed continuously and at a high frequency in the continuous war. The remaining population of the civilizations formed by the Teoti core, the Giant Wolf core and all other animal life forms is less than 1 million. What Li Qingyan wants is life energy, so the life planet he wants to control must be like the Angel Nebula controlled by the Mellow Heaven. With a powerful angel army, control all other planets in the Angel Nebula, suppress the development of their military technology, and prevent them from entering a situation of military hegemony like the Dinor civilization. All civilizations in the nebula get along with each other in a friendly manner and unite under the glory of justice. I don't need to guide their thoughts and beliefs, I just need them to recognize me as the king. Li Qingyan never thought of creating a Mellow Heaven or a Death Song Academy. He just wants to find a way to obtain energy from more living planets, so as long as he can find those living planets and then place the energy obtaining equipment on that planet. And in the process, he could incidentally become their king. How many materials do you have here, and how many Kamigawa mechas can you make? Li Qingyan asked. The materials we currently have can produce 200 Kamigawa mechas. The big clock answered. Then start manufacturing, and create them in the shortest possible time, and they will become the first army under my command. Li Qingyan now rules the land of nothingness, but here, at best, it is a group of ragtag people, not an army. He will next try to find more living planets. To enter these Earths and successfully build an altar that can obtain life energy, he needs the participation of the army. Copying these memory data of the Teoti Legion to create the Kamigawa mecha is the most convenient and fastest way. Understood, I'll start now. The big clock agreed, and then, underneath Li Qingyan's manor on Earth, the underground factory began to operate again. At this moment, Li Qingyan reached out and grabbed the energy factor of the God group. The process of fusing this energy factor with its own super gene began. Fusing the energy factors of the Celestials, the first real army began to be created. Li Qingyan began his pace of expanding his power. When 200 Kamigawa mechas appeared in the manor, the entire Earth was shocked. Banner and others who originally lived in the manor know these Kamigawa mechas best, and they know how powerful these mechas are. Originally there were only 10, but now there are 200 more. This already shows that something is happening at this time. Maybe Li Qingyan is planning something. Banner directly contacted Li Qingyan. Lao Li, what are you doing? Banner has the best relationship with Li Qingyan. Now that Li Qingyan has arrived in the universe, 200 Kamigawa mechas have been created at one time on Earth. He has to figure out what is going on. There are a lot of things to deal with. If we don't have enough manpower, we just make some. It's no big deal. Li Qingyan did not say that he would go to other living planets to build altars or temples or anything like that. Although Banner was friends with him, Li Qingyan had no obligation to tell him everything. Is there a lot going on? Banner looked hesitantly at the rows of Kamigawa mechas standing in the manor. Do you need my help? Banner finally chose to believe Li Qingyan. At least in the years they knew each other, Li Qingyan had not done anything bad. On the contrary, because of Li Qingyan's actions, two major crises were resolved. Loki invades the Earth, and the Dark Elves attempt to change the universe. He felt that what Li Qingyan was doing now should be a good thing. There is a place suitable for Hulk to play. Li Qingyan thought of Sokka. Hulk likes to fight and even more likes to be recognized by everyone. In the arena of Sakaar, Hulk can unleash his nature to his heart's content. Suitable for Hulk. Banner was a little confused. I'll open the wormhole for you. You come to my side first. After I finish taking care of things here, I'll go over with you to take a look. Li Qingyan said, and then, a space wormhole appeared in front of Banner. Banner hesitated for a moment. But in the end, he went straight in. He really doesn't have much to do if he stays on Earth. Maybe he can gain something by taking a trip to the universe. Crossing the wormhole, there is nothingness on the other side. He has completed the fusion of the celestial group factors, and now has a certain amount of celestial group power in his body. It's just that this power is not very strong because he has not yet received a large amount of life energy. Li Qingyan has no specific plans for his subsequent itinerary. The purpose of his coming out this time was to come to the land of nothingness to completely understand the data of the celestial god group factors, and finally complete the fusion of the celestial god group factors. The second step is to get the Power Stone and Soul Stone. But now, the Gods group factors have been fused, and the Power Gem has been obtained. As for the Soul Gem, he has no way to get it yet. As for the original method of obtaining it, Li Qingyan would not do it in exchange for the life of the person he loved. The soul gem is on Vormir, and not many people know about it. Li Qingyan can wait until he becomes stronger in the future and study the commonalities between the infinite gems before getting it. Even if someone else finds Vormir and gets the soul stone, that would be a good thing for Li Qingyan. Because the soul gem is not in that sealed state, it will be easier for Li Qingyan to get it. Where is this? Banner carefully observed the surrounding environment and looked at the various aliens coming and going. One with red skin, one with green skin, one that looks like a raccoon, and one that looks like a tree. The universe, aliens. Although Banner had been to Asgard with Li Qingyan before, beat up Loki and fought against the Dark Elves together, this was the first time that so many cosmic life forms of different races gathered together. Arrive. This is a land of nothingness, a stronghold I just captured. Li Qingyan said, and everyone who walked in front of him, without exception, would nod to Li Qingyan respectfully. You won it, so you rule this place. Banner was a little surprised. Li Qingyan was also very strong when he was on Earth, but he still behaved very low-key. Although it occupies a very large manor, other than recruiting a few scientists to create a batch of robots, it doesn't seem to have done much. Why did he directly rule a planet just a few days after arriving in the universe? However, this doesn't look like a planet. You went to visit relatives, what happened? Li Qingyan asked. When he first left the Earth, Banner said that he wanted to go back and see his family. Now that he has returned to the manor, his trip to visit his family must have ended. I've seen everything I need to see, and there's nothing else. Banner didn't say much. In fact, he actually gained nothing from this trip. Although I have met the person I wanted to meet, the problem of what I can do now is still there. After becoming the Hulk, it is impossible for him and his past relatives and friends to continue to return to the way they were before. Don't worry, they will slowly accept all this in the future. Li Qingyan naturally knew Banner's situation. Let's go, I'll take you to Sakar to relax. You'll definitely like the environment there. Li Qingyan opened the wormhole again, and this time the coordinates were Sakar. This Sakar is a planet that looks like a garbage dump. There are piles of garbage everywhere, and there are several wormholes that constantly transmit new garbage from the universe. In these garbage dumps, there is also a city. It is the only place on the entire planet that does not look like a landfill. And the center of this city is a huge fighting arena. Catch them. Li Qingyan and Banner had just appeared, and immediately a large group of people suddenly rushed out of the garbage dump. They held homemade weapons, and when they pulled the trigger, a large net was shot out. Banner subconsciously took a half step back. At this time, Li Qingyan waved his hand casually. A stream of energy appeared on the large net out of thin air, and then there was a flame burning. The large net was directly burned to ashes in midair. The appearance of this scene made the others who wanted to take action around them back off. But there were exceptions. It was a woman with messy long hair, painted face, and simple armor. Valkyrie. Li Qingyan recognized her. The big clock had already locked on all the targets that might pose a threat. This Valkyrie from Asgard was naturally the one that attracted the most attention. The Valkyrie raised the gun in her hand, and shot a special bullet at Li Qingyan's neck. However, before the bullet could land on Li Qingyan, a bolt of lightning appeared on its own. The flying bullets were struck by lightning and fell directly. That bullet is actually a special electric shock device. In Thor 3, the device that electrocuted Thor to the ground several times. As the god of thunder, the god who controls thunder and lightning, he can be stunned by an electric shock device. Thor is really sorry for his title. Valkyrie, you'd better take it easy. Li Qingyan looked at Valkyrie. The last Valkyrie of Asgard should have been a god of infinite glory, but now she has become a thug on Sakar. It has been sitting in this place for thousands of years. Who are you? The Valkyrie's face was solemn, and her right hand had inadvertently grasped a sword at her waist. Lord of the Divine River, Li Qingyan. Li Qingyan said, and then he slowly flew into the air. From today on, this planet belongs to me. Gao Tianzun, why don't you come out to see me? What Li Qingyan said at this moment appeared in the ears of everyone on the planet simultaneously. The big clock's dark communication has covered the entire Sokka planet. All information and all situations on Sokka planet are under Li Qingyan's control. Where did this arrogant boy come from? Gao Tianzun is with a large number of his men at the moment. Seeing Li Qingyan provoking him so blatantly, his face became extremely ugly. Send soldiers over and kill him directly. Gao Tianzun gave the order directly, and then a large number of soldiers took up their weapons and rushed in the direction of Li Qingyan. Li Qingyan looked at this scene and sneered unconsciously. His reputation in the universe is still too weak, and there are still too few people who know him. Otherwise, how could these shrimp soldiers and crab generals dare to come to me with a fire stick? Everyone, kneel down. One sentence spread throughout the planet. Immediately afterwards, a majestic pressure appeared directly on everyone on Sokka planet, including Gao Tianzun, who is the ruler of the planet, and the more powerful warriors here. Even the Valkyrie cannot avoid it. What Li Qingyan was releasing at this moment was pure dark energy, using dark energy to forcefully suppress everyone on the planet, making them feel an unparalleled oppression. Holy Kesha can suppress Morgana, the fourth-generation divine body, with a wave of her hand. Li Qingyan is now also a third-generation super soldier, and he has a big clock behind him to continuously provide energy and computing support. It's not too easy to use this trick to suppress a group of ordinary people. I only give you two choices. Or surrender, or die. Li Qingyan's words echoed in everyone's mind. These interstellar refugees who wandered from all over the universe were ruled by Gao Tianzun in the past, but now facing the oppression of Li Qingyan, their fate is just to be ruled by another person. Therefore, most people immediately changed their minds. They all accepted this fact, turned to look in the direction of Li Qingyan, and knelt down one after another. In the face of those who have surrendered, Li Qingyan will immediately remove the pressure on them, and then transfer the energy of these withdrawals to those who are still stubbornly resisting. Just like Gao Tianzun, just like Valkyrie. It was not difficult for them to bear the pressure that was originally equally distributed on everyone on the planet. Now that these energies have begun to concentrate and converge on a small number of them, the pressure has become extremely intense. By the end, even Gao Tianzun had surrendered. He knelt down on his knees with a look of helplessness and knocked his head on the ground. The last Valkyrie, although she doesn't want to be conquered by others anymore, she can't hold it anymore. She knelt on the ground, holding her body with both hands to prevent herself from falling down. Beads of sweat on her head kept falling down, so much so that even the pastels on her face were blurred. If you hold on for one more minute, I will accept you as my subordinate. Li Qingyan ignored the others and came directly to the Valkyrie. Although he didn't like Valkyrie very much at first, he admired her stubbornness now. Stubborn people are always better than those weaklings. You want me to be your subordinate? Then I might as well just give up. The Valkyrie just didn't want to surrender, so she kept insisting. Now that she heard that after persisting for a minute, she would become Li Qingyan's subordinate, she immediately became unhappy. Get down. You will be just like them from now on. They are just my slaves. They have to do whatever I say, and they have no right to refuse. But if you can persist, as my subordinate, you have enough autonomy. If you can make great contributions to me in the future, I will let you go directly and let you do whatever you want to do. The difference between the two is extremely huge. Li Qingyan said. When the Valkyrie heard what he said, she was already planning to give up, but now she reluctantly persisted. With enough independent power, there will be a chance to get rid of Li Qingyan's control in the future. Even if it was just a chance, she was willing to try her best to hold on for one more minute. Li Qingyan saw that the Valkyrie was still holding on, and a satisfied smile appeared on his face. 1 minute, in Li Qingyan's eyes, was just a very short time. But this minute was long for the Valkyrie at this moment. The continuously increasing energy suppression made her feel like she was bearing the weight of a mountain. Her knees had sunk deeply into the ground, and her arms supporting the ground had also been bent. This girl is quite stubborn. Banner came to Li Qingyan's side and looked at the Valkyrie who was struggling to hold on with emotion. By the way, do you really want to rule this planet? Banner didn't quite understand why Li Qingyan suddenly wanted to rule the planet. Yes, Li Qingyan answered. You want to make them slaves. What do you want them to do for you specifically? Banner was very confused. Li Qingyan could make robots by himself. When he was on Earth, he let robots do everything. How come they suddenly want to rule other planets after only being in the universe for a short time? You don't need to do anything. Li Qingyan just needs to build a platform here to absorb life energy. Other things will have no effect on him anyway. They will be the same as they were before. What? The Valkyrie raised her head suddenly. Then, all the strength in her body dissipated at this moment, and she fell directly to the ground. Just as it was before, so it will be in the future. Doesn't that mean that if she lies down, she can still live the same life as before? Since her original life has not changed at all, what is she doing to support herself? Are you asking for trouble? Congratulations, you managed to hold on for 1 minute, you will be my subordinate from now on. Li Qingyan looked with interest at the Valkyrie who was lying on the ground panting with a frustrated face. What do I do when I become your subordinate? Valkyrie looked at Li Qingyan. At this time, she could only hope that as Li Qingyan's subordinate, like everyone else on Sokka, she could always live here and live as before. Follow me, or follow my instructions to do other tasks. Li Qingyan said with a smile. Then can I choose to be like them? The Valkyrie looked at Li Qingyan expectantly, but what greeted him was Li Qingyan shaking his head in rejection. At this moment, Valkyrie felt like crying in her heart. Why should she show off when she has nothing to do? I persisted until the end, and held on for 1 more minute. In the end, everyone else could live here as before, but she had to be reduced to a laborer and had to work hard for Li Qingyan. Banner on the side could only look at the Valkyrie silently with a pitiful expression. Let Hulk come out, and let's go to the competition arena to have fun. Li Qingyan looked at Banner and said, "Oh." Banner nodded helplessly. Then his body began to change. The body of a normal person began to expand at this moment, and the skin on his body turned green. Seeing with my own eyes, a man who was very gentle before suddenly turned into a big green man, and everyone around him was shocked. Even the Valkyrie was a little surprised at this time. But then, she took one look at Li Qingyan and accepted it all calmly. Li Qingyan suppressed the entire Sokka star with just one sentence. Banner was with him, so how could he be an ordinary person? But he won't change, right? Valkyrie looked at Li Qingyan. It would be a pity if this handsome face and perfect figure also turned into a big green guy. Don't worry, I won't change. Li Qingyan smiled slightly, but his words made the Valkyrie look embarrassed. The thoughts in my heart were directly seen through by the other party. From now on, she would never have any privacy or secrets in front of Li Qingyan. Lead the way, let's go to the competition ground. Li Qingyan said. The Valkyrie, who was still in a daze, could only get up helplessly at this time. She walked in front, leading Li Qingyan and others towards the competition ground. When Gao Tianzun learned that Li Qingyan was coming to the competition arena, he quickly made preparations to welcome him. All his men lined up outside the arena to greet him. Even the spaceship originally used for the celebration was launched. Although they have all heard that Li Qingyan has no intention of destroying the original appearance of their Sokka planet, Li Qingyan has truly become their ruler. Gao Tianzun has realized that Li Qingyan may not be the kind of person who likes to grab territory. The purpose of his coming here is just to get a name. He might just play for a few days and then leave. As long as he serves Li Qingyan well in these few days, then after Li Qingyan leaves, he will still be the actual controller of Sokka Star, and he can still do whatever he wants here. Li Qingyan naturally knew what Gao Tianzun was thinking. But he didn't bother to expose it. Anyway, he won't be able to stay on Sakaar forever. There is still a need for a manager here. As for who this manager is and how he wants to manage it, it doesn't matter to Li Qingyan at all. Entering the competition arena, Li Qingyan sat in the best viewing seat where Gao Tianzun used to do it. Hulk went directly to the arena and started fighting one after another. At the beginning, the spectators at the venue were still frightened by the pressure brought by Li Qingyan, so they couldn't let go. As several battles progressed, and as Hulk showed off his extremely impactful violent aesthetics, everyone around him became excited. They had forgotten the fear of being crushed before and began to devote themselves wholeheartedly to these exciting competitions. For these people on Sokka Star, they have completely accepted the emergence of a brand new ruler like Li Qingyan. In the next few days, Hulk continued to participate in the battle, and in this battle, he gradually found the feeling of being praised by everyone that he had never had before. During this period, Li Qingyan found Gao Tianzun and gave him an order. Let Gao Tianzun gather a large number of workers on the planet and start building a huge altar. This altar is used to connect with the big clock. Li Qingyan will ask the Kamigawa mecha to install some specific core devices later. As for the overall high altar, the Saka people themselves need to be responsible for it. Gao Tianzun and others didn't think anything of the construction of the altar. Anyway, the image of the final champion they won in the competition field would be carved on a huge mountain cliff. Li Qingyan is now just a little more outstanding than those powerful warriors and just built a new altar. So, the altar on the first life planet was built naturally. From the moment the altar was built, this planet completely belonged to Li Qingyan. The altar is a huge symbol, symbolizing that Li Qingyan is the supreme king of this planet and their god. Even if the initial submission was only because of Li Qingyan's powerful strength. But when this power reaches a very high level, it will be deified. In addition, after Li Qingyan left, Banner, who occasionally recovered from Hulk, made a new reform here. For example, Gao Tianzun's exploitation of other people on the planet was stopped, and the participants in the arena were changed from being completely coerced to semi-voluntary. The reason why it was not completely voluntary was that Banner could not appear for a long time, and Hulk did not want to end the fun of this battle, so a semi-voluntary situation appeared. Half willing, half coerced. It may not be as cruel and tragic as before, but this arena cannot be stopped. This kind of improved living environment is a great benefit to the ordinary residents of Saka. Naturally, these people have a lot of good feelings towards Li Qingyan, the new ruler who changed their planet. Absolute strength deterrence, plus respectful good feelings. Li Qingyan's status and influence on Saka naturally became more and more far-reaching. Li Qingyan slowly became the god of Saka. Li Qingyan left Sakar soon. He began to travel in the universe, with the reluctant Valkyrie by his side. According to the cosmic star map that the Great Clock learned from Heimdall's observation, Li Qingyan went to one life planet after another. If the original living conditions of this planet are very good, the people live and work in peace and contentment, the planetary environment is excellent, and the ruling class is very complete. Li Qingyan is just a passerby, who takes a look and then leaves. But if it is a chaotic planet, where there are constant wars between each other, there is no suitable leader, or the leader is an extreme fool, Li Qingyan will take action. It's not that he wants to be a good person, but it's easy to occupy a planet like this. In addition, you are the savior who saves ordinary people from the hellfire pit, and the people on this planet will respect you very much. In addition, after ending their disputes and wars, their population size will expand rapidly due to the arrival of peace. This is also a process of providing Li Qingyan with more life energy. Li Qingyan took over these planets, and then recruited a large number of people to help him build the altar, and then sent Shinhei Mecha to install the core energy transmission device. After the altar was built, the local people not only said that they would not destroy it, but on the contrary, they would regard the altar as the most important holy place and protect it completely. You mean, Li Qingyan is constantly occupying those chaotic life planets, and then building altars there to unite the local people. Thanos, the one who wanted to collect the infinite gems, but Li Qingyan took the lead to collect 4 of them, was looking at the superstar in front of him with a surprised face. And the superstar, she was the first time to appear publicly in Thanos' Sanctuary 2 spacecraft. Originally, as the most mysterious intelligence officer under Thanos, the superstar should not appear in front of anyone. She only needs to investigate the relevant information and then tell Thanos the information through mental transmission. But now her identity has been exposed. Li Qingyan instantly expanded the scope of exploration by 1 light year, accurately found the location of the supergiant, and almost killed the supergiant. At that time, he was near the void, and that place was originally a place where information flowed very quickly. The existence of the supergiant was naturally spread to all parts of the universe. Since her identity has been exposed, she naturally does not need to hide anymore. Yes, but I think all this is not as simple as I know. The intelligence that the supergiant has found out all points to the fact that Li Qingyan is expanding his strength. But she has a feeling that Li Qingyan's purpose is definitely not to get more territory and manpower. There are so many superheroes on the earth, and there are many powerful ones among them, but Li Qingyan has never joined forces with anyone except Hulk, who was pulled over to help at the beginning. Although he ruled many planets such as the Void and Sakaar, he did not take any soldiers from those places except for a Valkyrie, and did not even let these planets form any powerful armies. Expanding territory without training soldiers for yourself is obviously different from general power expansion. He once suppressed all the people on the planet Sakaar by himself, which shows that relying on numbers alone is meaningless for people like him. Thanos' face was very ugly at this time. The information brought back by Superstar this time made him feel more and more that he could not compete with Li Qingyan. Suppressing a planet by himself is not as simple as taking the army to slaughter half of the people on the planet like Thanos. They still need to spend time to kill little by little. If they encounter stubborn resistance, they will have to consume a lot of troops to win. Li Qingyan is different. He is motionless and directly suppresses everyone with invisible energy. If he is not going to recruit troops, then there may be something useful to him on these planets. Ebony Maw said. Could there be any special resources or energy on those planets? General Grim Reaper also expressed his opinion. The intelligence shows that every time he arrives at a planet, he will ask the locals to build a huge altar for him. After the altar is built, a team composed entirely of robots will appear inside the altar. As for what they did inside the altar, we don't know. But from the memories of witnesses, it seems that some special machines and devices were transported inside. The super giant provided more intelligence for everyone to speculate. Altar. Thanos repeated this keyword. In this piece of information, or in all the intelligence brought back by the super giant this time, this should be the most important. My lord, do you need me to explore it? The super giant asked. No, your identity has been exposed. It is not safe to be easily exposed to Li Qingyan's control. Thanos shook his head. The super giant is very important to him. With him, Thanos can better grasp the information in the universe. Ebony Maw, you and Black Dwarf go together and choose a more remote life planet. If possible, avoid the locals as much as possible and enter the altar quietly, as long as you understand the specific conditions inside it. Thanos looked at Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf among the 4 Obsidian generals. One of these 2 people is a magician and has a smart mind. The other is a strong warrior, and he obeys Ebony Maw's words. It must not be difficult for these 2 people to sneak into a planet quietly and understand the situation inside the altar. Yes, sir. Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf nodded in agreement at the same time. Then, the 2 of them turned and left together. Just let them 2 go. General Deathblade was a little worried. They know nothing about the situation of this altar. If this is all a trap, let a unit of the Vanguard Guards go with them. If they encounter danger on the planet, the Vanguard Guards will be dropped directly to help them complete their mission. Thanos understood General Deathblade's concerns and added another sentence. So, originally it was only Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf who went there, but instead they went together with a Vanguard force. This time, it will be the first contact between Thanos and Li Qingyan. Although it is only a subordinate coming forward, and Thanos is only looking for the altar that Li Qingyan has arranged on a certain planet. But this was the first time, the first contact between the 2 forces. The last time Loki's was there, it was considered aborted. The planet chosen by Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf is a relatively remote planet. There is basically no connection with the universe here. Because this planet itself is a primitive planet in the feudal period. The reason why it is not said that there is no connection with the universe is that Li Qingyan has been here not long ago. The spacecraft was not allowed to enter the interior of the planet directly, because it would be directly exposed. Therefore, Ebony Maw and Black Dwarf went directly into it. They entered the planet through the light of transmission and came directly to the huge altar. This is a very large altar. From a distance, it looks like a mountain, and there is a sword and a huge throne carved on the mountain. The sword is the sword of Tiansha, which is clearly recorded in the intelligence collected by the super giant. As for the huge throne, it looks like an ordinary throne, but Ebony Maw always feels that this throne should not be simple. After all, it is something made by Li Qingyan, and the sword of Tiansha is inserted on this throne. How could it be just an ordinary throne that can be placed together with Li Qingyan's Tiansha sword? Maybe it is also a very powerful piece of equipment like Thanos' floating throne. That should be the entrance to the inside of the altar. Ebony Maw's eyes were fixed on the center of the Tiansha sword carving, where the disc-like void engine was located. Let's go. Black Dwarf couldn't wait. He walked over directly, swung the giant axe in his hand, and was about to chop at the gate. However, just as he was about to chop, a huge white mecha suddenly flew out of the gate. Yes, it flew out of the gate. On the huge stone gate that originally seemed to have nothing, a space wormhole appeared. In the hand of this white mecha, there was a big sword that matched its huge body. Behind it was a pair of mechanical wings, motionless, but it could help the mecha fly. This is the Teodi mecha in the Super God universe, which is now reproduced and manufactured by Li Qingyan with the help of the big clock, the Shinhe mecha. The big sword slashed out, and the black dwarf was directly slashed by the sword. The huge impact force knocked the black dwarf away for dozens of meters, and a huge hole was directly cut in the armor on the black dwarf. The Lord of Shinhe has long said that someone might want to come to the altar to cause damage, so he arranged for us to guard this place in advance. The Shinhe mecha said, and while he was talking, the same wormhole appeared from the other side of the gate, and a Shinhe mecha exactly like him flew out from it. Li Qingyan had already ordered the big clock to manufacture 200 Shinhe mechas as a backup when he was in the land of nothingness. Later, when the big clock continued to collect more materials, it would continue to manufacture. Now, in fact, 2 such Shinhe mecha guardians are secretly arranged in each altar. They don't show up on weekdays, but once someone wants to invade, they will immediately activate their programs. Just now, Black Dwarf swung his giant axe to split the door, which was a warning of invasion. So the 2 Shinhe mechas were directly exposed. 2 robots. Ebony Maw looked at the 2 Shinhe mechas that appeared in front of him, his eyes full of disdain. Target data has been updated. Ebony Maw, one of the 5 Obsidian Generals, is good at controlling magic. Black Dwarf, one of the 5 Obsidian Generals, has extremely strong physical defense and strength. The latest Shinhe mecha said so. Ebony Maw's face turned pale when he heard his words. The other party can judge their identities with just one look, and can directly know their abilities. These 2 robots may not be simple, and maybe they have communication with Li Qingyan behind them. The intelligence of the supergiant said that Li Qingyan has the ability to instantly cross the universe. If these 2 robots pass the information to Li Qingyan, I'm afraid Li Qingyan will come immediately. By then, not only will their mission fail, but they may even lose their lives. Go to hell. As he spoke, his right hand stretched forward, and a powerful force appeared on the 2 Shinhe mechas, trying to twist and crush their steel bodies. Feel the magic energy attack. Start the Void Engine. Load the Void Defense Program. Defense type, Magic. These Shinhe mechas are not ordinary Shinhe mechas. In the Super God universe, in order to test the Void technology, the God of Death Karl had already equipped the King of Shiken with a low-profile version of the Void Engine. Although Li Qingyan could not prepare such a Void Engine for all Shinhe mechas, some Shinhe mechas in key positions were still prepared. Like the King of Shiken, Fengli, and the Stag on Earth, they have it. The Guardian mechas stationed in the altars of various planets also have it. Although these low-end versions of the Void Engine are not very powerful, it is not a problem to create some special protection programs for themselves because of the Void technology. Just like magic defense, this is a very common power in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. On Earth, there is a magician force called Kamar Taj. Loki of Asgard is also a magician. The Big Clock has been analyzing for so long, and has also done some basic research on some of the magician's energy. Not to say that it can completely resist, but basic defense can be achieved. At this moment, with the operation of the Void Engine, the Void Defense Program is activated, and the power that was originally squeezing their bodies and destroying them directly is mostly removed. Without the forced suppression of this magical power, the Shinhe mecha immediately took the initiative to attack. They are all experienced warriors in the Teodi Legion, and they know best how to expand their advantages on the battlefield. Now that they rely on the activation of the Void Engine and have the ability to resist the direct control of Ebony Maw's magic energy on themselves, they should immediately launch a counterattack. Don't give Ebony Maw the opportunity to use other magical abilities, and don't give Ebony Maw the opportunity to continue attacking and break their Void defense power. The 2 Shinhe mechas attacked together, and the big swords in their hands chopped directly at Ebony Maw's head. Ebony Maw didn't expect that his magic attack would be destroyed so quickly, and there was obviously a hint of hesitation in his actions. Fortunately, he was not alone. The black dwarf who was slashed by the Shinhe mecha before had been beside Ebony Maw. Seeing 2 Shinhe mechas rushing over, he immediately swung his battle axe and slashed at the Shinhe mechas. The battle axe and the big sword touched each other, and Ebony Maw's body was shocked and flew backwards, but the actions of the two Shinhi mechas were also blocked. In this blocked gap, Ebony Maw had reacted. He gently waved his right hand, and a huge rock under his feet immediately floated up, taking him back quickly to a safe distance. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.